This conference will now be recorded.
Call the work session to order at 8:01. Silence your cell phones, stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Work session is building and grounds and the 2025 budget. Brian, good morning.
Morning. So I'm here to present a couple larger budget items that I have on for 2025. I gave you all a packet that has three of the capital budget request forms in it. We'll start out with facilities parks equipment. So basically, the equipment for facilities and parks include a skid loader, brush cutter, grapple bucket, and a snow pusher. So with the purchase of these items, we would be able to eliminate 2 contracts that we have every year. The snow removal, which averages out to around 29,000. And the goats that we have out at Courthouse Park for the buckthorn removal is about 30 grand. So basically it'll help with maintaining the buckthorn in the parks versus the goats. It'll help with moving fallen logs in not only Courthouse Park, but other parks as well. And then for snow removal in our areas during the winter, the snow pusher would make it basically quicker. We still have the plows on our trucks, but it's a lot easier. And then the skid loader, it would replace the 23-year-old skid loader that started costing us some money to fix on a yearly basis. With the equipment, it would be a total of 111,000. So the cost of the levy would be 111,000. Any questions on that?
Can you get into a lot of those areas with that brush cutter where the goats can get that easy?
Oh yeah, definitely. With the right equipment. So basically, just an explanation, we'd be able to, so the goats go in there and they eat pretty much all the leaves and everything off the buckthorn. But they're not in there long enough to actually eat the stems all the way down. So if we go in there with a brush cutter, cut everything up, it's gonna be easier to maintain because you now have it down to basically a ground level. So it's just basically taking everything down. Other parks do the same thing to manage the buckthorn. So it wouldn't only be Courthouse Park, it'd be Goose Lake as well, has a lot of buckthorn. And not so much at Flowers. Eustis has a little bit, but not as much as the other 2 parks.
So,
I just have trouble sometimes, and I know you gotta manage this buckthorn, but if you start clearing too much underbrush, to me, that takes away habitat. And so there's a fine line between controlling the buckthorn and just clearing out your woods so you can see from one end to the other. I know a lot of people are doing that now with the groves, and because now they've got little grapplers on their bobcats and stuff. just don't want to take away from the natural part of the park also by taking out all the fallen debris.
No, I understand that, but we're taking out the buckthorn and getting rid of that, which is an invasive species. That allows other plant growth.
Right, as long as you allow that to go.
Correct. I mean, there's not gonna be any spraying involved. Usually gonna keep it down. So other trees, other plant, wildlife, whatever could, you know.
I think when this goat thing started was, the idea was a couple of years of the goats, and then you would be able to maintain it through possibly spraying or something. That wasn't that kind of the original plan, was a couple of years of the goats. But you're maybe not seeing that control quite as well as you would hope.
No, and especially, so just this year now, we removed the goats just lately. Because it's so wet, and the goats are now getting crack hooves. So they have to take them off site for however long for their hooves to heal. So because of all the excessive water. Of course, goats don't walk through water either, but supposedly, but they are, you had to remove them because they were starting to get cracked hooves.
Are you sharing a skid loader right now? Did you say that we get?
Yes and no.
We do have a 23-year-old skid loader.
Yeah. So we have an older skid loader now, which is a smaller one that came to my department when I took over the park. So it's been in the county for a while. Land and Water Resources got a new skid loader, but it's a hit and miss when we can actually use it because it's being used somewhere else.
Is there a certain time of year that you would do the cutting, spring or fall?
It would be in the spring. Yeah, right when it's coming up. Before we got the seeds on it.
And the only reason I ask is because if you want other things to grow around it, you're wiping out that whole area.
Right. It'd be early spring.
Is Land and Water Resources doing any snow removal for theirs during the winter? There would be a conflict of that time overlap that we know of. So that one's sitting idle through the winter. Do you have a trailer to haul this, Brian? Truck and trailer that's able to move a skidder with a brush grapple or?
We do, but,
Trailer isn't the next thing coming up?
yes, we don't, trailer not, we have the equipment to haul.
Just truck, right, just truck.
So can I interject for a second? So this is kind of a one-year pause conversation. We had this conversation last year with the hope that the skidder that was purchased by Land and Water Resources using repairing dollars primarily, we could figure out some sort of continuity or sharing program there. And I'm sure this would change based upon the season and the weather every single year, what that would look like. Pretty confident of that. And the winter is a good point. But I'm guessing Brian isn't really referring to the winter as terms of the peak times. So the peak times, the 4 or 5 months out of the year when they're competing with each other, for that is maybe more problematic. But knowing that this would still be a conversation that needs to be sifted through. But I wanted to frame it within the parks budget overall as well, which on paper or on the screen shows about $100,000 decrease from last year to the 2025 projected budget. However, the conversation I wanted to make sure we get in the forefront is the land sale revenues as well. The understanding, or at least the language at the time when we were pursuing these land sales, was to reinvest those land sale dollars to parks and parks operations. Doesn't have to be the case, but that's why I want to have the conversation, because That's where the conversation started, or at least what was said when the conversation started, I should say. So that is a difference, certainly, if that isn't the case, or even if a portion of the revenue is not wanting to be included or redirected elsewhere, because it's included right now. So we want to make sure we take a few minutes when Brian gets through the more major capital budget request forms to look at the overall picture of parks and facilities and Fund 11 in terms of our capital projects, or seeing everything in one picture.
Is this a track machine, Brian? A little bit of devil in detail. So it is a track machine?
It is a track machine.
Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Once again, without going down the rabbit hole, buckhorn is pernicious and it's invasive, and it is considered an invasive species, and we're supposed to get rid of it. Is cutting it without spraying it gonna get rid of it? Or what is best practices here? I would be interested in that, because the goats have kind of kept it at bay and really at least helped knock down the foliage the last couple of years, and I think that was worthy of that experiment, but eventually, and I know getting it before it gets berries on it is also essential. Is there a better way?
So brush cutting to get it down
Mhm.
to a manageable level. Yes, you can spray at that time.
Okay.
It's a lot of acreage
Mhm.
to go in and spray. Do we have the equipment to do it?
Okay.
Do we hire somebody in to come and do it? Yes. And then the chemicals that they use, does it infiltrate the river system?
Yeah.
You know, so there's a little bit of
I know there's nuance to that conversation.
yeah, I'm trying to think. So I'd have to dig in deeper
Mhm.
as to the chemicals. Could we get a spray system that we'd be able to pull behind
Mhm.
one of our pieces of equipment to manage it ourselves? And what does that chemical do to our watershed?
Absolutely. And what kind of licensure do we need to have to be able to apply it as well? Because you can't just do that. You can't even get a hold of the chemicals without the proper.
So I did kind of look into that, and basically it states right now, if you're doing your own, if county's doing their own property that they own,
Mhm.
you don't need a license.
Really? Okay.
It includes a mosquito spraying that would start. I thought you would need a license to do that.
Okay.
It states you don't.
Okay.
Because you're doing your own property and nobody else's property.
Well, I know we have some experts on the board that have more experience than I do at spraying, although I did it for a couple of years and hated every second of it. But I don't necessarily have an issue with, we want our departments to have the tools they need to do the job they need to do. And we do want our works to improve. But I'm also looking to have more long-term solutions and best practices, so that'll put that in your back pocket and keep looking.
Ryan, does Water have a snow pusher for theirs?
No.
What's the cost of just the snow pusher?
8 to 11.
The only reason I ask that is that when you have those winters where you're constantly going, it might be better to have a second one going.
Well,
89.95 is what we have.
so this, if you're only talking about courthouse, highways coming in through their area, they're making one pass. Right? Highway, are they not doing the road? They're not doing the driveway, they're doing the road. They used to make a pass through there with a truck.
You're talking courthouse park?
Yes,
So they go in there if there's a foot or more of snow.
otherwise you guys were doing it with the pickup.
Otherwise, we do all the park.
Yep.
Unless there's a foot or more that are from a straightaway. And throw us into the ditch.
The pusher would be more used around the building facilities and the parking lots.
So it'd be, sheriff's building across parking lots, basically to all our buildings. And then our straightaways would probably still go on to the parks.
Can you do the sidewalks with the push, snow pusher?
No, it's too wide. I mean, you can possibly go halfway with a snow pusher to get a majority of it off, but you'd be sitting, you'd be wearing one edge of the blade on the curve, basically. Or if you're up high enough, you'd be digging into the grass. Our equipment for the sidewalks is still good. We got that handled pretty well. It's basically a time thing. It comes down to when you go to the parking lots. That's why we decided to contract it out to help a little bit. And of course, this last winter, we paid a lot of money for no snow. Versus if we would have had snow. Wasn't many times that we went to remove snow, but it still costs full contract price.
So that contract is for the year, not per time around there. Is that contract with one individual, this 29,000?
That, yes,
Is that a local person?
I'm trying to keep everything local.
Right. And then, yeah, the time required, let's say we have a bad year, you have staff enough to do, if we didn't do that contract, if we were removing the snow, it's gonna take more time, staff.
We have always removed the snow in the past with the staff that we have. So
So
the
when
parks
do we-
person now comes back in the winter time to help us, the caretakers. So, because there's not that much to go in the parks anymore. So that's kind of the process that we have with the caretaker. So the winter months, he's back with us to help us with the winter months.
And then he's hourly at that point, or is he himself?
He's always.
So it would be more staff. If we were using him to push snow, it would be more staff time.
If it was an overtime situation. Because right now he's budgeted that he's gonna be working 40 hours a week regardless.
Oh, year round.
Yeah.
Okay.
And really, the only overtime that my staff gets in the winter is on weekends, if it does snow.
Brian, let's move on to the next two, and we'll come back to that, folks, give everybody time to process.
We'll turn on to community services building HVAC system. So I'm gonna try and, I'm gonna read this to you as for the reasons and justification of the HVAC system in the community services building. So in 2008, Brown Printing took over and remodeled the upper two floors. And at that time, they put a new roof on and a new HVAC system. But they took out the reheat, electrical reheats on the second and third floor. I don't understand why they did that. It was discussed in our remodel in 2020 to replace and redo up there, but it didn't happen in the budget. So my request now is to basically bring everything that was discussed back then. So on the first part, that I had kind of typed out on my, capital budget request form, the reason for replacing the 4 rooftop units that supply air to the second and third floor. The existing units are over 16 years old and have a lower efficiency rating than the new replacement units. Control of these units is difficult and ineffective due to the way that the system was originally installed, having zone dampeners without the reheat coils that were removed in 2008 remodel, and not being integrated into the building automation system, which we have now, only on the lower levels. The problems have caused significant comfort issues for the occupants in the offices and cubicle areas. Managing the complaints has been difficult because of the lack of the VAVs and the reheats available to warm the air coming into the building. So the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers, they require a certain amount of fresh air per building occupant, and conditioning this air is necessary for comfort control. And reheats are not used. All the heating is done at the unit, which would be basically our boiler system now. This leads to constant cycling of the gas heat and hot air blowing through the duct, followed by cold air when the heat started off. The fluctuations of temperatures create hot cold spots throughout the workplaces, spaces. By installing electric reheats with building automated control, the supply air temperature per zone will be more consistent and allow occupants to be much more comfortable. By integrating new RTUs and VAVs with reheats into the building automation system, there will be greater capabilities for staff to save time managing comfort, compliance, reduce energy usage, and prolong the life of newly installed mechanical equipment. For the lifetime of the equipment, it can be expected this project will have a net positive cost benefit. I'm not saying you're going to make the money back in 2 years, but over the years, we'll be saving money with the new units. On the part 2, it'd be the addition of occupancy sensors to the first floor HVAC system. They'll allow temperature setbacks and automated scheduling of the equipment that serves these spaces right now. The air handling unit, the heart of the air conditioning unit, and the VAVs, variable air volume, with reheat that provide conditioned air to the first floor of the community service building, operate 24/7. So the variable use of the building that requires it to be conditioned if it must be used for overnight emergency family service. However, operating 24/7 is unnecessary most days of the year. These overnight emergency family services only occur sparingly month to month. And by installing the occupancy sensors, the HVAC system can automatically turn on when movement is detected in the building and condition the air to the comfortable temperature when it's physically occupied. During occupied times, it will allow the AHU to turn off and operate the temperature setbacks. This project has potential to save energy immediately after installation and will likely pay back within the first 2 years on that one. Appropriate operations and maintenance of VAV systems is necessary to optimize system performance and achieve high efficiency. And I did check with the city and we get about $8,500 kickback with the upgrade. I'm not sure if you understood all that, but I just kind of wanted to throw things out there. Like I say, it was discussed prior, but not integrated into our remodel.
Was it discussed during the remodel when we took over the building, or was it just eliminated from that remodel project? Did the architects bring forward and say we need to do this, and then it wasn't accomplished?
It was discussed by me, and then it would have been architecturally take a little bit more work, and of course more money. So then it was not integrated
It's
into.
more of a budget decision at the time.
I was on the building that time. And the decision was made that the new radiators on all the floors really took precedence as far as trying to get occupants and comfort over those units, and that those units could be replaced at a later time.
Basically, you got 2 units up there going in there. Like,
So it's also important to recognize that this isn't a catastrophic failure or something. This is a convenience thing, a comfort thing. There is some cost savings to be realized over time, that's certainly fair. They're not efficient in terms of their function right now, but it's more comfort.
with the system we have now, the boiler that runs the whole building, all floors, and the heating units on the roof that throw AC and heat. This unit will bring the temperature to where it's supposed to be, and then this unit will bring it back up. So they're constantly butting heads and fluctuating the temperature.
Where's, is most of your complaints on the first floor? Or as far as?
Second and third floor. Because that's what the units on the rooftop and
Oh, because they're mainly wide open, aren't they? Or they got some offices in there, but a lot of that is open spaces. Second and third floor.
correct, but it's zoned. There's different zones up there.
There is even,
Which you have a north side, a south side, an east and a west side, and there's multiple zones up there. And each one of these zones had the electric reheat taken out in the 2008 remodel, which is for the comfort level to adjust the cooling, heating, and letting the right air come through. So you don't have a fluctuation of, we can turn it down to 72 degrees because it's reading 80. Once it gets back to 72 degrees, the other unit kicks in and kicks it back up and it goes back up to 80. It's constant fluctuation, per se.
So it's more about the cooling than it is the heat. I mean, are more of the complaints that it's too warm.
Warm.
So we do have window coverage, correct, for that in the sun, on the south facing.
Yes.
What's that tree is whistling?
Is this gonna, Chair, is this gonna help with our lowest level if we have something placed in there?
Correct.
is that something that can be integrated into the project?
I asked that same question, but probably not. I don't think there's much of a material impact on the lowest floor. It would be tough for us to make that argument to justify throwing $300,000 into that grant. Because I think all the infrastructure for the lower level is there.
This would be totally different. Everything that was going to the lower level was not consistent, so anything was on the 3 floors above.
That's exactly what happened. And this one was a new one for me. I've honestly never heard anything about it or any complaints about it. Not that I would, but it was, this one was more of a surprise to me.
I don't know how it should affect Brian's budget. I think this is something that should have been done when the project took over. Instead of come back and fix it now.
Well, part of this conversation needs to be the relationship with Mid Prairie as well. Because I wasn't there for those initial conversations, so correct me if I go off course, but part of the rental agreement that was constructed was predicated on the bonding dollars at the time to remediate that building. So does this become a conversation that is then brought back to that rental agreement as well too, as they are some of the main drivers of this request? It has to be part of the conversation too.
Do I have the email still? No. Certainly, they will.
And that's why I clarified that this is not like critical infrastructure. This is not something that's going to just ruin anybody's world if it doesn't happen in this particular instance. And if more conversation needs to be thrown at it, then that's absolutely fine.
What the existing units are over 16 years old, what's the life cycle? Do we have that? I mean, anything can happen, I understand that. But, you know, if this gets pushed out a year or two and something fails, there's 4 units, if one fails, can it run on 2? No. Okay, so this could be a scramble at any given time if we have one rooftop unit failure.
Correct. And we've already replaced a couple motors and a couple where we had to wait.
Okay, so parts are not readily available on this anymore at all.
I've actually spent some money on contractors coming in to look at the system overall and trying to figure out how we can get the temperatures where we need to, and it all comes back to the readings that were taken out in the way. And just having the multiple zones is okay, it's just you can't control it.
Can you lock the control boxes?
Will I?
Lock the control boxes, so they can't fight with each other.
So we're, Mr. Chair, what should we be looking for, not
Yeah.
asking you to make decisions?
All right, moving on to my third one, basically comes down to facility vehicles. Just a short narrative here, quick. So what I'd like to do is replace the existing 2014 F-250 park truck that has, we have purchased, got 70,000 miles on it, and then replace it with a 2025 F-350. It's starting to rust out, but also with adding the current parks caretakers and responsibilities full-time of the parks require more constant hauling of large equipment, and an F-350 with better towing capacity would be recommended. The parks truck is now being used only by the caretaker during work hours and stays at Courthouse Park. And then I'd like to purchase a 2025 F-350 to add to our fleet, which basically, with one of our trucks going to the parks caretaker, both facility staff have to ride together and work together due to only one vehicle. And I can't separate due to the different jobs. So, and it'll also eliminate them using personal vehicles all day if I actually have to separate the two to go somewhere. One of them has to use their own vehicle. We keep the existing 2016 F-250 which is our facilities truck right now, which our staff use. And then I would like to replace the existing 2003 Dodge Caravan with 93,000 miles on it with an F-150. So this vehicle was the van was originally purchased by the request of the board for road inspections and didn't get used much. Some of the automations that went out on it and not replaced, like windows down. Basically, right now, the van's being used by the facility supervisor, due to the parks truck being designated for caretaker. They took a vehicle away from the department. Any questions on that?
Was that a 2025 F-150 then?
So that is a four-door.
But I mean, replacing the Caravan.
That would replace the
So
van.
it's a brand new.
Yes,
So you'd be looking at 3 new pickups
correct.
and adding one.
No, 3 total pickups.
Right.
Buying 3,
Taking away the.
just taking away 1. Oh, taking away 2 vehicles.
Are they diesel or gas engine?
Gas engine.
Other questions from the board?
I think it's a good idea to go up to the 350, gives you a little bit more.
There's only a $2,000 difference. And the quotes that I have on here, was basically building the truck. And, in conversation, it probably be a little bit less.
So you can't buy off the lot, single cab, eight-foot box.
Possibly could. Either just, you're up with the quote.
Other questions?
You're talking as far as the replacement of that Caravan wouldn't need to be a 4-door. Just the.
Well, your 2 1-tons are gonna be just 2-door,
Correct.
but you're having a 4-door F-150.
Correct.
And you have to haul staff with that, or what's?
That's what the reason, well, the supervisor or myself would be the one using that. And if, you have to haul extra people, or it could be, you guys could use it, I mean, if we weren't, for travel wise. That's why I only went with the 150 on that. Park space. All more people that need to be.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a brief caveat here, as we haven't done this yet in this particular budgetary cycle. This is staff's opportunity to present the capital budget request forms. It's still preliminary in the program itself. But it's helpful, in my mind at least, correct me again if I'm wrong, for you to hear the wants, needs, and desires there. This is not necessarily what's going to be final in the budget recommendation that comes back to you. Some of that will still be fleshed out. But that's why I made the comment a little bit ago too. We're not asking for approval on anything, of course, today. So it's 1 pickup, not 3, 2 pickups, not 3, et cetera. We'll figure some of those out, because at the end of the day, it comes down to dollars and cents of the overall county picture, not any one department. And that's how we're going to treat it in the budget. So I just want to give that quick clarification. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I brought a spreadsheet to look at quick. It's kind of what it is, pretty much the detail of my department, how I break things down by line item. And you probably haven't seen this before, so this time to share. It's been my Bible for 23 years, so. So just kind of, thought we'd show you guys, kind of what the breakdown is, so you can ask your questions if needed on the specifics of each line item. Of course, everything in IT is always going up, I'm not gonna lie. With the cost of everything after COVID has really hit IT world, where some equipment used to be $2,500, now it's $10,000 a piece. So you'll notice increases, but is it something that we can get, it's just the way it is. But
Judy, why don't you step through some of the items that it gives an explanation for the actually are.
Okay, so under the professional and technical services, that's kind of, any outside network support that we need. I put a little lump sum in there in case it's stuff that we can't handle and we have to hire out. Our state router, what that is, that's our connection to they're kind of like our internet service providers, what the state router is. They provide all our internet. And also now we're part of a CrowdStrike security, which is a endpoint management security at the state level to try and catch things for us counties before it hits the county level. So, so that's what that cost is. Civic Plus is our website page and also our Civic Clerk, which is the management piece that we use for the board meetings. And then the 3 MetroNets, the first one is our first fiber loop that connects the courthouse to highway, to public health and back. That was established in 2019. That's a 10-year contract. That's why it is so cheap. Because we got a good deal back in 2019, and I did it for 10 years because I knew we weren't going to go anywhere. So, and then the other 2, as it states, the CSV is for our DR COOP plan. So in case our state router goes down, we have a backup router and connection for internet there. And then the fairgrounds is the recent Wi-Fi that we established at the fairgrounds. So that's what those costs are. And then the security assessment pen testing, something we haven't done at Waseca County and something that is needed. When we had our PSAP audit and our BCA audits that we get yearly from the BCA, one of them is having a security and risk assessment on a yearly basis to also check the exterior of your infrastructure, but also the interior. So it's a dual purpose. And so I got a quote with a company, and it's a 5-year contract. It's $16,200 per year of that 5 year. And then they would come in and do all the testing and then tell us where we don't know what we don't know kind of right now. So
Basically hiring someone to try to hack into your system
yeah.
and hope they fail. But from the BCA standpoint, to clarify, this is a requirement.
Yes.
This isn't really a suggestion. This is something that should be done.
Yeah. Okay, so then the software support, the items in red, the majority of those, yeah, all of them actually, I just flag them red so I remember that these are all the MCCC costs that we pay to our consortium called Minnesota County's Computer Co-op. So we still get our corrections, our community health services software, court services, our GIS assessments, our Tyler tax now is part of this group. So that's what the red items are, is everything that's MCCC related. And then the next items, the PBK, that's the attorney software that we have. Law enforcement, CIS, and their mobile data computer support are the next 2. Schneider Beacon maintenance, that's for our GIS and then also the geo permits, that's in planning and zoning. And then our time card program, RT Vision, which is how everyone does their time cards, highway and the courthouse. So any questions on any of those? Okay. The other ones are kind of hardware repair maintenance. Those are kind of for emergency issues that arise. Professional development, as that says, the rental and service agreements, that's for our MyTel phone system and our MyTel Revolution, which is our reporting system to everyone that has a cell phone and reporting through their phones on their desks for like panic button, tornado, like that. And then office supplies, that's kind of like it's all our toner, all our cables, all our, you name it, adapters, CD-ROM, flash drives, yada, yada, yada. That's kind of what all of that is on the office supplies budget. And then software purchases and upgrades is listed there. It's our Tyler Munis maintenance, our tax maintenance, our Tyler cashiering. Our Beyond Trust, that's our remote software that IT uses to connect everyone remotely. Our Microsoft M365 Exchange, that's our yearly Microsoft agreement for Office 365 in the cloud. The Tyler Assessor module is highlighted in yellow, so it reminds me that I gotta check with Tammy, are we gonna do this or not? So that's why that's highlighted, nothing standoutish, but, our ESRI is our GIS Enterprise Service Agreement to maintain our GIS layers. Tri-min recorder fees, as it states, it's for all the fees that come out of the recorder's department for their system. And then the ISC, the Assurion, what that is, that's the device that we share between Dodge and Waseca to store and archive all recorder fees and all recorder documents, sorry, and then we share between the two. So they back up to our county and we back up to their county. So we have a joint in case something will fail.
Question on the Tyler Assessor Mobile.
Yes.
Are we currently using that or is that new?
Not yet,
Okay,
not yet.
I thought we had talked about moving that direction.
Yeah,
And then,
it's in the budget for '24 for the main purchase, and then this would be the maintenance.
this would be the maintenance.
Yep, for the year after.
But this allows assessors, when they go out to a property, to do the final thing right there
Mhm.
and get it in our software as opposed to taking notes and bringing them back.
Correct. Yes.
And update pictures and everything,
All in time. That seems
measurements, pictures, all those.
efficiency, you know.
And then the non-capital assets, that's basically our reoccurring replacement lists. We try to go 4 to 6 years. Some computers go 7 years. We just we try to do 4 to 6. That's our replacement costs on whether it's printers, desktops, laptops, any of those types of things. All those sheriff squads is on that list. So it's just the normal yearly replacement costs based on, we go through our inventory every year and Heather pulls out, hey, what's 4 years old? What's 5 years old? What's 6 years old? And then we are they complaining? Are they having issues? Kind of like your guys' laptops that we just replaced. So that's what all those replacement costs are. And what we have noticed for the soil and water and any computer now needing the ArcGIS and ArcPro for their jobs, the system has to be really, really, really robust now because of the software requirements. And it has to have a special graphics card and a certain amount of memory. So those in soil and water and GIS and whoever uses the ArcPro software, those have gone up significantly. And then the capital assets are our main hardware. It's our switches, the CSV. We have a switch to replace on the 3rd floor. Again, we try to do these we're trying to push them out. Used to be every 4 years. Now we're trying to go 6 to 8 years on that equipment. We also have spares on the side in case something breaks. So that's what the CSV 3rd floor, Public Works mezzanine, and then the law enforcement have 2 in that department that will need replaced. And then the sheriff file server, what that's part of is a requirement by the BCA in that we have to separate all criminal justice data information now off of our system onto a separate system that is managed with its own firewall. Right now they cohabitat in a violation, and so we have to segregate everything now and separate.
Questions for Judy?
Judy, back on the state router usage,
Yes.
do we still provide that to the city?
Correct. We provide internet to the city.
Is there a cost on our end to do that?
I don't know how to answer that. Do we charge them? No.
Should we be charging them?
I guess that's up to the board, I guess, and
But what is it costing us?
Well, it's costing us about 19,000 for everything through the state. And so, but we do not pass that on to the city. It's just been a handshake agreement over the years that I've been here that we provided them internet.
We don't have a good way to determine how that should be apportioned. You know, not like the total amount of data being utilized. It would have to be something like an employee type basis or something, some kind of metric that's easy to point at and say. But it's a good question. We've had a number of conversations with the city in the last several months trying to help them from a IT infrastructure standpoint, even to the point of talking about being more of a robust IT service for them, moving quickly away from that idea, at least in this timeline. That doesn't make sense for us right now, but our staff have been very willing to the point of going with their staff to do an audit of all of their infrastructure and tell them, here's what you should be doing and what you need to be doing and what you need to prioritize right now. So we've been very assistive over and above to the city in recent months. And I don't have any problem with that, but fair to point out the fact that we've never charged back any of those costs to them.
This doesn't have this isn't your full budget, evidently. It doesn't have your staff.
No. This is basically the big, large items out of my budget. It's not every single piece of,
Okay, the full budget.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can we compare this to anything as far as last year? I don't know what we spent on these items last year.
I didn't bring last year's.
So the full budget, Commissioner, is on the screen there. So the 2024 final is 1.114 compared to 1.49 would be projected currently with everything you see on the spreadsheet. $25,000.
Okay, so minimal increase.
And yes, in the grand scheme of things, minimal increase. So if we go back, scrolling down to compare some of those major categories, Judy's talking through, a big piece of this will be that, I think it was like $55,000 for the assessor module. That's in the 2024 budget. It hasn't happened yet. There's still some discussion on what the best product is there that Tammy and her staff are working through. So undoubtedly they'll come to a decision there. But yeah, we can certainly go back and look at 2024, what was happening versus, or what was planned versus what's actually happening. But of course you can see the action dollars being spent there too. So we're not anticipating any major surprises for 2024.
That is that as of June 30th?
Yes,
Actuals?
that's as of today.
Judy, do we have any departments that have their own printer, or are they all IT?
We have a lot of departments.
But they're managed through.
Managed through IT?
Yeah. And then we
Yes.
have copiers.
Everyone's printer is being managed through IT.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the big change if you look back here to 2023, going into 2024, and some in 2023, we started to strive to make IT the central service essentially for all contracts, software support, infrastructure type upgrades, printers being one example there, not budgeting each individual department for computers. So everything is now being captured under the umbrella of IT. So it's a bit of an artificial increase when you look at 2023 compared to even 4 or 5 projected, because those were costs already being budgeted and realized elsewhere that we pulled under the IT umbrella. So that they were a lot easier to track. It was much more discombobulated looking at, okay, what are the computer costs for this department and this department and this department? It's just, here's the cost. That's why it's helpful to have that spreadsheet that Judy's working through, because now you see, here are the people that are due for an upgrade in this particular year. They have that ongoing rotation every single year.
And then if a department has funding or grants, they buy stuff through that. So it won't come out of IT.
I know from sitting in on enough training and stuff about technology that that the cost of not investing in IT can be huge. And the fact that NCIT wasn't going to cover us for IT. I know this is to some degree forcing our hand on some of the things that we must do from BCA and from other places. To come back to the discussion just a little bit on the state internet and what we provide for the city of Waseca. Do we provide that for any of our other cities?
No, just the city of Waseca.
And do the other smaller cities have need for it? Do they do their own? Do we?
Yeah, they all do their own.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not sure who their providers are.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah.
I wouldn't expect you to know that off the top of your head.
But yes, they each have their own provider.
I obviously want to have a really great working relationship with the city of Waseca. And to a large degree, their interests and ours overlap a lot. But representing one of those other cities, we probably need to take a little bit of a holistic picture at this and not just figure out the cost, but talk about security, because what is the cost to the residents of a Janesville or an Richland or a Waldorf if they have a breach because they don't have or aren't putting resources enough resources for things. And let's take it, I don't want to be godfather, but I also want to take the overall look at that and talk about it and think about it.
And I can kind of back up, and how the connection started with the city was basically not giving them internet. They had their own internet. It was when our law enforcement system back in 2000, I want to say, went with CIS, which is our shared record system, and then we share that with the city. So that is what the first connection started was. We gave them fiber so they could share between us with the CIS system. And it wasn't cloud-based at the time, so we're talking how many years ago. So that was the initial connection, and then it just kind of grew after that. Then we started sharing GIS between the two, and then they, yeah. So that's
You
kind
know
of
how these things happen,
Yeah.
and they start with the best of intentions,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that they have to change
Yeah.
necessarily, but
Yep, so it's just a little
history and
explanation.
precedent
Yeah.
matter, and we want to be thinking,
Yeah.
not just where we are, but where we want to be. So thank you for that context, I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair. Why it's further important to talk about the cost consideration is that this is not a reciprocal agreement that we could even entertain with these other cities in terms of the proximity.
Okay.
The only reason this really works from a city of Waseca standpoint is the redundancy of the fiber route that we have. We don't have a direct fiber connection here to the city of Janesville, originally. So that's part of the consideration here too. We just truly can't replicate even what we're doing with the city here that are part of their local government units. So
Okay.
it's a good thing to discuss.
Thanks for that context.
Judy, on that line item 6450, is that generally almost 300,000 a year for software purchase and upgrades and maintenance? Usually around 300.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tyler's a big chunk of that. Since we started more holistically going to Tyler for a lot of our integrated financial system, our tax and CAMA, our assessor, our cashiering. That's the bulk of that line item as a whole is the ongoing support. Alternative to that, and there's a couple of counties and only a couple of counties that do the alternative where they staff individuals fully to maintain those programs. And it's at least as much, if not more, because you're paying salary and benefits. But it is expensive, and it's difficult too, because it's like they can really charge what they want to charge, because you have to make the system work. There is a pretty active user group for all of those from the state standpoint that exercise some cost control measures and factors. So it's regulated to an extent, but we're always going to be a pass-through recipient of their costs as they increase as well too. It'll go up every year, the maintenance agreements for certain.
And if there's upgrades, or do they send people here and there's no further cost? I mean, you don't have.
Yeah, for the
mobilization cost.
Yep, for the Tyler ones, everything is in the cloud because we're software as a service in the cloud. So they perform all the upgrades and installs, and then we get the latest version as part of this cost.
But if there was like schooling toward it, or they send a person here and that's included in that pricing.
Well, part of the implementation process, then we had training in the initial.
Yeah.
And so further training, I'm not sure how the departments are handling.
It really just depends what it is. Honestly, it depends what it is, what the request is. If it's covered in the maintenance agreement or not. If it isn't working, or if there's a legislative change, there's a different provision for legislative changes that happen. They might do some ongoing training for free or as part of that regular maintenance agreement. If it's something that like we just want additional training on this piece of software, we're going to pay additional cost. If it's relative, they also have an abundance of resources already for all of their individual modules, either in tax camera or Munis, which is what this is being a Tyler product as well on the screen in front of you. So there are a wealth of information and resources and user groups as well too that can embrace some of that, but limited to the over and above what's going to be.
Thank you.
Are we utilizing Tyler Muse for what we're paying for? Are we using all the programs? And I see Melissa sitting here, the scheduling part of it, and the law enforcement, are we getting that utilized?
It's getting built. It's in the testing stage right now. So I see it coming this year.
Other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
All right.
Michael, budget updates?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just want to, we're going to get more than this in the future too, but it's, now this is a lot of data and a lot of small data. So I really apologize in advance, and we're not going to park on this too long, but at least give you some touch points of how this will be integrated into the overall schema of what you'll see the end of July for me in terms of that budget forecast document. We're looking 1 second, pulling something else up, as I wanted to touch base on our overall schedule for 2025 preparation. So we are all on the same page there. This is something you would have received in May as well. So just touching base where we are, as of really yesterday, the end of day yesterday, departments would have been locked out of their budget entry. And there are 2 exceptions to this. So we've been talking to Amy yesterday. I moved this date to Friday as I'm meeting with a couple of departments tomorrow, the sheriff being one of them, who's a large contributor to the overall budget picture. So not all of that data has been inputted yet, so I just want to make that clarification. Talk about numbers. But expectations for the month of August and really even the rest of July. As I said, keying in on that Friday, July 26th date, that preliminary budget document due, that's from me to you. That captures, here's where we are in 2024, how it's contributing to the 2025 conversation, and then everything else in 2025 that we should be talking about and considering some of what you're hearing today. So I, again, want to be very clear that what staff convey to you, even in some of these workshops, is not my endorsement per se, but it's still important, I think, for them to be able to communicate from their perspective. Here's what we think needs to happen, even if, or I should say, even before some of the realities of budget come up and say, well, that's great, but we have enough money for this. So some of that is still ongoing and will be ongoing all the way through this September date. So we're working right now, scrolling down a little bit to this second meeting of September, Tuesday, September 17th, approving the 2025 preliminary levy and budget. So we kind of work backwards in a sense from that date. And so I would welcome your communication to me or input for here's what I think I'm missing or what I need to get more information on. But you'll notice in the month of August, every Tuesday is set aside for some of these budget workshops and presentations. So I just want to make sure that's in your, on your radar, on your calendars, that we'll plan for 8 a.m. on every Tuesday in August. And if you want to see something different or even in addition to that, please just let me know. If, again, you're not hearing some information that you want to hear or you think there's holes in your own mind, let me know and I'll send it to you, Chris.
One request, if we're gonna meet every Tuesday in August, which I'm fine, Beth, could you please reserve the other two that are not board days? Because we've got work sessions already scheduled on board days at 8, but we don't for the other 2 Tuesdays. Blocking that off sooner rather than later in the summer. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you email that to us?
For sure. Yes, absolutely I will. And I'll include some of the commentary in what I emailed to you. That's why I wanted to just briefly show it to you and talk about it before I just sent it to you and bury you in the information. And this, I will also say we'll update for 2025, but this kind of helps in the 2025 conversation. So what this effectively is levy data for the entirety of the state, every county of the state from 2020 through 2024, so we can start and identify some of the trends, the progress, if you will, on right sizing what that levy amount should be. And in order to determine that, we try to take a look at some of the others around us, and we can, of course, argue a little bit for what's the best determining factor. Is it strictly population? Is it per capita? There's a number of ways we can argue it, but we always have a best touch point in terms of population. So scroll down a little bit. The ones that you see in yellow are plus or minus 5,000 essentially. So we'll look at that in a minute. We'll sort of a bit differently. But Waseca County in this and the gray and how this is sorted right now is just looking at total levy increases from 2020 through today, which would be the column right here. Clearwater is in red because their data is weird. And I didn't trust what was actually being reported on the Office of State Auditor's website, so I'm just removing them from the equation right now until we can get better data. Because you see this somewhat precipitous drop off right here from 9 million down to 5.9, and I know in reality that didn't happen, but that's the number that's being reported on OSA's website. So I get some fine tuning on that before we talk about it realistically. But other than that, and I'll freeze the panes and things for you when I send this to you, so you don't just scroll back and forth. But let me just zoom out for a second. It's going to get tiny. So if you look at everything else happening around the state, Waseca County would have the 5th lowest increase over that 5-year picture. Personal caveat there, you weren't involved, I wasn't involved, collectively, we weren't involved in the 2020 budget preparation as predecessor. So in that 5-year window, when we include 2025 in the picture, of course, we would expect this to get even better in outlook. But Lake of the Woods, Murray, Itasca, Dakota being the only counties that cumulatively had a lower percentage increase in levy from then until now. So out of 87 counties, I would feel pretty good about that. Especially when you look at some of the specifics that happened there. Dakota County had basically a flat levy for 3 years and paid cash out of reserves all through those COVID years. Itasca did exactly the same. And you will see some right sizing in Itasca this year. And even with a couple of these counties. So this being Dakota County, for example, in this line, they did have a little bit of an increase there, but they paid cash fully in those 2 years. Itasca paid cash fully for those 3 years. Lake of the Woods, this is one I'm, again, trying to get some information on because they had that 22% decrease. So that's somewhat artificial because they bought down quite a bit with cash there as well. So you're going to see that one start to right size as well into 2025. So even in the fit spot, if you will, is a great place to be over that picture. And I think that even gets better through 2025, and especially if you look into 2021 through 2025. And selfishly, just to be clear, that's what I've been here for and responsible for. So that's why I specifically mentioned those dates. But even despite that and without that, it's still a great picture to look at. If we, the other part of that conversation then would be, okay, well, what do we look like when we compare to some of the closer population thresholds around us? And and again, I'll send this to you. You can sift through it, compare it however you want, digest it for a little while, and we can come back and you'll see some of this narrative factored into that end of July document as well too. And over on the right, I'll just mention that I have various summaries built out, percentage change of the levy, actual dollar change per capita, estimations as well, total percentage changes from 2020 to 2024, which is what we looked at initially. So there's a lot of that data. I will probably continue to, there's more summaries you can look at as well. But again, it's kind of what is most resonant or important to you or us when we go through some of this. So take a little bit of time and look at these highlighted counties, as I said, plus or minus 5,000-ish in population to us. Look at some of those percentage growth. Obviously, you already know from the last summary, you're in a better position over the last 5 years than all of them. So the key to this consideration over a several year period is what's the right amount? Like what should the levy be? And then figuring out what those actual cost of living adjustments should be as reflected on an ongoing basis. Part of my narrative coming in here is, well, I think we're out of balance a little bit. The levy's too high. The resultant tax implication is too high. And it's a little disparate when you consider some of these highlighted areas especially. That's getting much, much, much closer and has overtaken several of them as well, which is good. That's the direction we want to go. But eventually, you run into a point where we figure out, okay, this is the right number. This is what it should be. And this is a lean budget approach to both get the services that we say are important and we need, but isn't. The fat has been trimmed.
So you've got tax rate per capita, or levy per capita, on that other page. Or is tax rate the better scale, because you don't know how much commercial business you have in that county versus population.
100%. I would love to be able to get an accurate tax rate in here as well too. I don't have a good report to pull that from. I should say I don't have a good report to pull the tax capacity from. But my brain went the same place too. And I do think that's an important piece to this, showing the actual extended burden, like we do for this county every budgetary year, but showing that extended burden to the individual or the individual property classification is a helpful tool. I don't know if we'll be able to get a reliable net tax capacity number for all of these individual years. We can strive to do that at least for a couple of years, more relevant years.
There is I got a report 4 or 5 years ago that had, and that was state generated.
Yeah.
That lined up all the counties with how their tax rate was. Is that something that comes out annually? And there again, the accuracy can sometimes be questioned. If they're getting the right information.
Yeah, so the PRISM system, Property Record Information System of Minnesota, is what the Department of Revenue manages. It is self-reported data from each individual county. So could there be a little misconstrued data? There could be, but I would say it's going to be fairly accurate. Still fairly new in terms of at least the effectiveness of that system. Not new in concept, it's been talked about for a really long time. But that is where I would go to try and pull some of this data, yes. And that would have been what you saw generated, is definitely that PRISM system. Because right now, you could go out right now and run a report for total levies by county. But usually it's only the current year and the prior year to show the change that's available in real time. But there are more robust portals, and I could ask Brock to see what he could come up with as well too in that assessor's portal. Because there's what you can see if I just as an average person go out to the state site, and there's the more robust options in reporting that can be done too. So yes, I'll inquire and to see if we can add another layer of information. And what I shared with last year from the tax rate standpoint, for Waseca County as a whole, has been tremendous decline. And that's why I certainly don't want to omit that part of the narrative. It's a very clear reflection in this county as a standalone talking point. Of course, seeing that comparatively across the other counties would be helpful. So I'll send that your way. You can peruse and digest, and as I make some updates or we get further information, we'll continue to refine. You will notice a couple in here. Beth had made some notes. She did most of this data entry of the levies themselves from the OSA websites, but there's some in there that are blank because they failed to report specifically to the state in that given year. So isn't an error. It's just the data didn't exist.
Questions for Michael?
Yeah, good data. I'm glad you put this together for us.
Good job.
Yep. Anything else?
No, that's all I have for today.
Anything else for the work session? You're good? Work session ended 9:20. Thank you.
call, then it went to someone else on my desk. And all I'm saying, yeah, probably, yes, you're fine. I was like, that's my cell phone. I just get the message, right, I'm sitting here. Yeah. And when it's if you the sheriff's office out yeah. Just wait on the check that you get and
No one's already.
It's an essential service.
All right, we'll call board meeting to order at 9:31. Silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Public comment. There's no one here for public comment. We'll move to approval of the agenda. Rachel, anything to add?
Not to add, but can we move the drug court proclamation up earlier in the agenda? That's all I have.
Commissioner Drowsy?
No, sir, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Milbrat?
No, sir.
Commissioner Christopherson?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mulder?
No, Chair.
Michael? Beth?
No.
All right. Put it up.
On top of the action item.
Yes. We can move it up.
The first action item.
Yeah. All right. Looking for a motion with the amendment. Motion. Is there a motion by Commissioner Milbrat, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approval of the agenda amended. Next are presentations. Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation annual presentation. Good morning.
You. Okay, yeah, for everyone.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to get an update on the work of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. As you know from my previous presentations, our foundation does basically three things. We invest heavily, a couple million annually, in fact, in early childhood needs across the 20-county region here in central southeastern Minnesota that we serve. We invest a couple million annually in entrepreneurial activity within the region, and we have some programming that's dedicated to the smaller towns here in this region. We're a region with 12 regional centers, but we wanted to make sure that some of our work was specifically dedicated to smaller towns. In terms of specific investments in Waseca County in the recent past, we just awarded $10,000 worth of books to the Waseca school system, the University school system, and Waseca Public Health for use in reading programs for preschool age children to help them with literacy needs, to get them ready for kindergarten. In many cases, these books do end up going into the homes of the families, and that's a good thing as well. We also have repeated trainings for early childhood providers, both center-based providers and in-home providers, to allow them to get the continuing ed credits they need to stay in business and to be the best they can be with young children. And many Waseca early childhood providers take advantage of those trainings every year. So those are among the activities that we engage in the early childhood space. And those are specific examples of the programming that we have made available here in Waseca County. In our entrepreneurial space. A piece of that is business lending. We are not the be-all and the end-all for startup or early-stage businesses in our region, but part of our mission in 40 years of our existence has been to help new business startups in the region. Among the more recent loans that we have issued to businesses here in York County are Stoltz Cleaning Services, RWP Properties, that's the Four Seasons business here on Main Street, Hardy Manufacturing, Waseca Morgan's Meat, and then a couple of years ago, several years ago, in fact, Half Pint Brewery, J&R Bar, Pleasant Grove are also among the loan clients that we've been engaged in. Sometimes on our own, sometimes in partnership with EDA or a local bank. A few years ago during COVID, the state of Minnesota, the federal dollars asked our foundation if we could help distribute business recovery grants here in this southern Minnesota region. We did over 2,000 of those grants at the time, delivering about $20 million worth of resources to those businesses that were affected by the closures and the restrictions imposed during that COVID timeframe. 78 of those business grants came to help businesses recover their losses here in Waseca County. And we're also a modest investor in the real estate fund that's working here in town to develop some projects, specifically looking at a housing project out near the high school and Walmart. In terms of small town work, we have a paint program and a project in Richland. Was benefited by that program last year. Looking at my list here, Farm America twice now has received free paint for projects that are important to keep that place looking good. And then on behalf of the Taylor Family Farm Foundation, a brand new foundation that came into existence 6 months ago, we were allocated dollars to help with some final work at the ball field, the Tank Larson Field here in town. That grant went forward just a few weeks ago. Incidentally, I happen to be on the board of directors for the Taylor Family Farm Foundation, and they will be over time focusing a lot of their resources on needs here in rural Minnesota, all across southern Minnesota, not just the 20 counties that our foundation serves, but some of the counties to the west. So we love the fact that we're going to have another partner that's basically the same mission as our foundation, and that's to invest in the vitality of this part of the state. So with that, thank you for the ongoing support we received from the Waseca County Board. All 20 of the counties in our region provided some level of support in the roll-up to our annual budget of about $7 million. I would say we probably get $1 from locally raised contributions, individuals, banks, corporations, counties, cities, for every $15 that we bring into the region with other resources, including the earnings that I should say off of our own endowment fund. So that's who we are and what we do, and thanks for the opportunity to provide that update.
Thank you. Questions for Tim?
We had a gentleman at our EDA last week from Waldorf, Charles Barnes, and we'd like to get him in contact with CFO Solfit. Who would be his contact?
Well, you can start with me.
Okay.
And I think I put my business
Yeah,
card.
you do that.
And if I need to turn it over to our VP of entrepreneurship or our VP of child or our VP of community vitality, I'll make sure the right person does the follow-up. Depends on the project. I know that there's a veterans park going in.
Yeah, that's part of it. He wants to do a little more development on Main Street,
Okay.
moving a building and
Okay.
starting.
That would probably be our VP of entrepreneurship, but I'll make sure that we do the proper follow-up. If there are resources we can bring to the table, we're happy to do so. As I said at the beginning of my remarks, we're not the be-all and the end-all in any of these areas of our work, but we try to be a good collaborator, a good partner with other organizations so that our resources, if they fit the project, can be a helpful complement to help supplement to the other agencies that are investing in these projects.
Okay, I'll make sure that he gets your number.
Yeah, please do.
Any questions or comments?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next is Public Health Department update. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, yay.
It's going to display on my screen then.
Thank you for having me this morning. I'll, when we get the slides up, that'll be helpful, but until then, just so you know, I'll give you a little bit of background on public health. Spend some time reviewing 2023 and then a little taste of what's to come. Yeah, everything's still moving away. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the mission of public health services in Waseca County is in partnership with our community to protect, promote, and enhance the health and well-being of the county. That's work that we do in partnership with the community. Every public health department in Minnesota is a little bit different. And the reason for that is that they are responsive to the needs of the community. And every community in Minnesota is just a little bit different. We are not cookie cutters here. So we do have need to really shape our work over time as it changes and our communities change. We need to make adjustments as well. Next slide, please. Historically, that hasn't changed. Government has always needed to be responsive to what's happening, and they're charged with the well-being of constituents. And most of government's work is done with an eye to people in the margins. The aim over time hasn't changed. How we understand and provide needed supports has. Part of our planning and assessment is to see what portions of our population need the most support to achieve their best health. Research shows if we're able to help those with most to gain, those with the least to gain still benefit from improved health outcomes. So for a lot of different reasons, not everyone is given the same opportunity for health. And public health works to increase those opportunities so everyone can reach their best possible health state. Just a note, I think I've said this before, but the reason that much of government work falls to government is because it's not profitable business, and this is especially true in public health. We have to remember as we're doing planning and as we move forward that we can strive for efficiency, but reaching and supporting the difficult to reach and those with the most needs is not efficient. It takes extra time and resources to provide the right kind of support for long-term benefits for folks that need that extra lift. Next slide. Thank you. Although we've been hard at work across the state for many years, gaps grow wider. The realization that this is a system level problem spurred the state to administer the cost and capacity survey in 2022. We've spoken quite a bit about the cost and capacity survey at the community health board meetings. Those results paired with discussions on how to close the gaps did result in this updated framework highlighting equity as a standalone and also an embedded effort in all of our work. It also helped disperse new allocations of funding to local public health and aimed at improving the foundation of public health in every county in Minnesota. Next slide. So if we take a look at 2023, just a note that public health does tend to think in circular patterns. We plan, do, study, and act, only to begin planning again. We serve our residents as they move through life, starting with our work with families and providing immunizations as they go. We work to assure through state and local partnerships that water is safe to drink, food is safe to eat, and medical care is accessible as our families and residents work and grow. And as they age, we help coordinate care and keep folks in their homes as they desire, only to begin working with their grandchildren as they begin to start their families. As we're currently arranged, there are 4 branches in our public health department, and I provide direct supervision at the moment to the community health branch and the 3 supervisory staff of the other branches. Public health is often most associated with its immunization and WIC programs. In Waseca County, these are both under our family health division. But there are many other programs that provide wraparound support for our community members. Excuse me. Our family health unit in WIC shares with Waseca County what the state calls a combined caseload of 10,413. That's not people, that's visits per year. Around 4,200 of those visits are Waseca County appointments. We average about 320 participants over the course of the year. So 320 moms and babies and families that we're serving. Of note, in 2023, 38% of our births received WIC services. We also distributed 40 car seats in 2023, and we provide those with instruction and support for installation. As of this morning, we've already given out 54 car seats, so we're well ahead of last year in the heat and distribution. We also provide home visiting services through our Healthy Families America program and a few other funding sources. And in 2023, that was at 10 families, and that is growing as well. Again, that's a very intense service, so the numbers are lower because we need to provide extra supports to those families to make sure they have what they need. And then we also have Healthy Smiles that falls a bit in this department, and that averages 7 appointments a day, and they come 2 times a month to provide dental care to those that need it. This year, we added to the family health unit Mariana as a certified community health worker, and she's really just beginning to get her feet wet. She's working on a countywide mental health project right now, and she's also providing important translation services for all of our programs. Sam, the leader of this unit, is currently on a leave, but I want to make sure that you understand she still continues to carry a small caseload. That was really helpful when we had 3 vacancies at once. But we hope that that's not a long-term need as we increase the staffing there. That need for her support should tail off of it as we have vacancies and leaves, and this is a unit that tends to have young families. Senior services. So our senior services team does focus on those age 65 and older. We do provide service to cases outside of that age range. In 2023, our team made 2,216 client visits. They each carry an average caseload of about 40, and they're all certified assessors. Certified assessors use the MinChoices assessment to determine program and service eligibility for people. A certified assessor meets with a person to gather information about their needs, and after the assessment is complete, they review a summary of that assessment and provide referrals, resources, and next steps for those that are assessed. If the person receives or is eligible for publicly funded services, they develop a plan with them to deliver services based on the person's needs and preferences to support their life in their community. If they're not eligible for publicly funded programs, we do provide resources for home health agencies, home delivered meal programs, medical alert providers, medical supply providers, assisted living, senior living, nursing homes, and healthcare clinics, anything that you might need to stay healthy where they're at. Here is that team. We do have a current vacancy. As you're likely aware, after our team provides service, we bill for that service, be it directly to the state or to our MCOs, our managed care organizations, South Country, and Blue Plus. Referrals for initial assessments generally are not billable, but fall into a time study funded by our random moments. So the funding of this unit's a little interesting, to say the least. Sam Langer here also normally carries a small caseload. So with this vacancy, is taking on clients to help lighten the lift of the remaining folks. And between the two health plans and the state waivers, there are no less than 17 different programs that these folks need to understand in order to provide service during those assessments. And this is the fun stuff. So I did bring Leah with me because once I start talking funding and it gets complex, you guys always have great questions. And I tend to use the wrong terminology. I don't want to get you tripped up. And I'm so grateful for her because it's truly complex. This is the complexity shared amongst all of our team as well. Over the course of a year, each staff can be paid out of multiple of these different funding sources. And our minimum is 4 different pay sources in a year. Some with a lot more. Most pay sources do have asks or requirements along with budgets and associated work plans. Our medical billing, we'll give you a slide here, averages about $26,000 per month billed. And our quarterly time study disbursement, or I probably said that wrong already, is about $20,000 per quarter. And then just for of note, this fees for service category is primarily environmental health, but there's also some medical equipment rental in it as well. The next slide. Oh. And that one, please, thank you. I have one for orders. All right, so there's the big picture of how our department is funded. Again, that medical billing is about 15%. Fees for service only at 4%. Our levy in 2023 was just a little over 1/3 of our support, and then with grant funding in the 40s. This changes from year to year, and if you go back, I know you're all interested in how this has been shaping up. And so this is a graph showing what we billed and then what we were actually paid. You can see that margin shifts a bit over the course of time, but doing pretty well. I'll pause because usually there's questions here.
My only question was that, do you have a breakdown of the 35% that is levy funded, local funding?
Which programs?
Yeah, where most of that levy money is going?
I did not bring that with me today, but we do understand which programs need more support and which do not.
Some are partially funded, some are, grant funded.
Yeah.
Levy.
Yep, and we've got a little bit of levy just about everywhere. In some way, shape, or form, just making sure I'm misspeaking. Our environmental health program tends to fund itself right now, so we don't have a lot of levy in that particular spot. A lot of support of the levy support often goes into supervisory positions because they're less billable. In case loads help with our senior services and our family health, but it's not everything. To give you just kind of a broad picture, but I can certainly provide that information.
And you maybe know where I'm going with that question. that we've got this South Country Health Alliance money coming, and we gotta find some areas that we can use that money.
Definitely thinking about that already.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I figured you were.
All right, and here's the branch that supports that incredibly difficult work. Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Well, I was just gonna say that is coming directly back to Waseca County,
There's
not to the CHP.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's what I wanted to understand.
Yeah.
Yep, we don't, South Country doesn't do service in those.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. You'll see there's a lot of new faces here, so again, we've had quite a bit of shift over the last couple of years. But I just wanted to say that these folks are really already greeting our residents with some really big smiles. They're super amazing. They really dug into their work and they're committed to providing that welcoming experience, not only for our visitors and callers, but they're really helping the rest of the team get the things that they need and keep us ready for work. Community health. Some highlights for community health this year. Colin has been very active with the Waseca County Suicide Prevention Cohort, who most visibly partnered with the community to promote and support Green Out Day. That group has also been working to outline a pathway for care, pathway to care, working to be sure partners have the right information and knowledge to provide support if they encounter someone under mental duress. And moving forward, a large amount of effort and work will continue to be built through this group around mental health awareness. Our community partners very strongly believe that mental health awareness is their most needed area of focus across the community. And we did identify that, as you know, in our assessment and planning process. The statewide health improvement partnership also is under community health. That's where you see a lot of those bullets. They worked with NRHEG to implement a healthy snack cart for their after-school homework program, and they also worked with their staff wellness committee. One outcome of that was what they called a deceptively healthy potluck. So the staff brought in healthy dishes that didn't look healthy, and then shared recipes, and they had a great time. Ashley also worked closely with Extension and the Waseca County Farmers Market on the farm produce efforts, which you've probably heard about. And again, provided fresh produce to 587 children last year. And they're already taking orders for this year, enrolling children. I think of import is that 261 of those kids have never been to a farmer's market. So really a fabulous thing. Currently, we have active partnerships with our local schools, and in the last year, administration from all of our local schools and our school nurses were invited to a monthly virtual meeting. We touched base about current infection rates, but also any projects of mutual interest. It's been a really valuable way to check in while we were finalizing our improvement plan, and I recently met with some of those superintendents, and we're looking at adjusting what those meetings look like and really digging in even further in partnership. So very exciting. We additionally meet with emergency personnel, medical facilities, and emergency management at least twice a year in a formal setting. And post-COVID, these meeting invitations have been sent to a wider stakeholder list, including township officials who have been attending, our library administration and city administration as well. They've been terrific ways to partner with emergency management. Environmental health falls into this bucket as well. They're a little bit special, so I like to call them out separately. They do work in a variety of areas. In 2023, we had 112 licenses issued for food, pools, lodging, mobile home parks, and recreational camping areas, as well as pools. And we gave away or awarded $38,868 in septic system upgrades to residents. And 25 well permits, which I heard that number too, we've already reached for the year. So moving forward. All of our direct service work creates relationships in our community. The existing relationships help us to expand our reach and implement change more rapidly when necessary. It also helps us to know what things are changing in our community so we can anticipate or take action. In the past, we've relied on these relationships to inform much of our work with little formal feedback options from them and the groups who they represent. Our recent community conversations were our first steps to do a better job of gathering information directly from our constituents, from your constituents, from the county, from the people that we serve. And we continue to look at ways we can do that more often and more effectively. This is the 2023 version of community health. You know that this is undergoing some change. So just an awareness for you all. Here's what we've got coming next. We need to spend some time in our community health improvement plan showing us the need and interest for mental health and for substance use and abuse. So looking at opioid funding, cannabis, vaping in schools, and are some of the things that we have on our mind, as well as looking at how we collect data and use it to inform our decisions and provide that to our community partners. We are increasing our community social connections and communications, and as we make changes at the community health board level, shifting our work, again, to make room for all working life and more. And just a little sneak peek of how that changes the organizational structure, and here it really doesn't too much. We just add in that community health supervisor for the sewer as one of those supervisory branches. And then again, we'll be adding the emergency preparedness specialist. I do know that they're scheduling interviews for those two positions. That's exciting. I just want to, oops, I'm sorry, we can hear here or there, it doesn't matter. We have 18 current public health staff. All but 4 have 3 years or less of experience in our agency. Of the 16, no one had previous public health experience, but 2. So we have 2 people with previous public health experience. Our range of service currently is 23 years to 1 month. The average years of experience are 5, but our median is 2. So we've got some really fresh faces looking at our work in a different way, in a different light. We have a couple of staff taking advantage of the county tuition program to further their degree, pursuing a 4-year degree. We supported the certification of our community health worker, and we have some staff looking for more work, not less. That's a change. We, for many years, had lots of folks asking for part-time, and now we've got part-time people asking for full-time. So everything shifts over time. We've got lots of funding opportunities for our workforce and their support. Just a fun fact as we close up here, and this is just a different view of the slide before. There was no organized public health body in Minnesota until 1872. And before 1977, when our community health board materialized, there were 2,100 local public health boards. So our community health board has actually been in operation just a little bit shorter than I've been alive. So if we think about the structures that we use to support our work and what's changed in 46 years, there's definitely room for us to be cognizant of that and intentional about what we do and move forward. That's all I brought with me. Any questions for myself or for Leah?
I have a couple questions for you on the opiate money. Are you going to sit with a group of people other than just public health to discuss where that money should go?
Absolutely. So Andrea Kronbach is taking on the lead for that work, and she's going to be convening a group to discuss like what is it that our community needs and where are the opportunities for us to use money that makes sense. So yes, it will not be just us.
Okay. The other last question, I was at a meeting and they were discussing critical intervention training offered. Is there a grant funding that came to public health for that?
Not specifically for that, but that would be something that either we could look at doing opioid work. The critical intervention training, as I understand it, requires a team to really be effective. And so identifying partners, including mental health providers, who are willing to sit on a team and have time to do that would be one of the challenges that we would want to understand and be ready if that's something that the group would want to move forward with.
Good questions for Sarah. Other than your age.
I'm not afraid of my age. I might be afraid of my children.
There you go. Great, thank you. Ben? Oh, I'm fine. You're good?
I'm good. No.
Ditch Authority, CD 35 outlet petition. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here this morning to consider a petition for the ditch 30 to grant access to use county ditch 35 as an outlet. Ditch drainage staff received a petition from John and Doris Krause for a parcel of land which is currently in county ditch 50 watershed, and they would like to tile out of that, a portion of their property out of that watershed into county ditch 35. The parcel of property that we're talking about is 14 acres located in section 14 of Wilton Township. It's about 2 miles southwest of the town of Wilton. And as part of their petition process, the Krauses commissioned engineer Steve Pinklow, Jones Hogan Smith to demonstrate that the receiving system, County Ditch 35, has the capacity to receive the drainage that they're trying to petition. As part of this petition, the Drainage Authority shall appoint viewers to appoint benefits applied to the parcel of property and an outlet fee. Subsequently, they also are petitioning to remove benefits from County Ditch 50 at the same time. As part of this process is the obligation of the Drainage Authority to appoint viewers and to set a public hearing date. And in that process, we have to notify everyone within County Ditch 35, and we need to publish the meeting date once a week for 3 consecutive publishings in the newspaper. So with that, I would look for a motion to appoint Mark Behrens and Wes Dahl as viewers and set a public hearing no sooner than 9:30 a.m. August the 6th of 2024 at the Waseca County Commissioners Room of the East Annex at 300 North State Street, Waseca. And I will take questions as you have them. I'm sure you may.
Questions for me? I'll move that we, whatever you said. So we're gonna have 3 separate actions on it, yeah.
What's that?
Will we have 3 separate actions?
Are we just moving to appoint the viewers?
I guess we would be moving to appoint viewers and to set a public hearing.
I would think that it's 3 separate actions, yes.
3 separate actions. What would be the, what would be one step?
Accepting the petitions, appointing the viewers, and then setting a public hearing.
Okay. I'd really like to ask some questions first before the.
Sure.
Questions. I think I'll second it. No, I'm not making, I'm not making.
All good, okay.
Questions. Since we're gonna do the petition part first, I just want to be sure that I'm a little confused on the, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but this 35 as it's shown on our map that's on our desktop here shows that 35 stops for a half mile. Am I seeing this right? In 10, and then it eventually dumps into.
County Ditch 50. Yeah, County Ditch 35 outlets into a natural water course or another public private ditch, excuse me, and then that private ditch outlets into County Ditch 50.
Yeah, okay. So by moving this to 35, it's getting to an open ditch a lot quicker.
That is correct.
Which is beneficial to 50, right? It's taking pressure off that tile system.
Yes, well, the reason for the petition is that this area of concern to the Krauses is on the outer fringes of County Ditch 50's watershed. They have difficulty in getting subsurface drainage to the County Ditch 50 system, because County Ditch 50 also has a private ditch that leads into County Ditch 50 as well. And so they're trying to, for lack of better terms, take a shortcut for an outlet of drainage. They own the parcels of property both in County Ditch 50 and County Ditch 35. They're paying benefits into both systems, and they're crossing their own property to get an outlet. They are approaching this in the right manner because many times in the past, if a person owns all of the property and they're in the fringe of one watershed or another, most people just take the liberty of tying into one watershed or the other at their convenience, and we never know about it. So they are attempting to do this in the proper format fashion. The requirement under 103-401 is that they have to demonstrate that the receiving system can accept that water from the private drainage system. They have also spent the money to do that to demonstrate that that's not going to make a substantial change to County Ditch 35.
So with that, I will move to accept the petition.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Milbrandt. Any other discussion? Again, this petition.
The benefits will be an even swap then from 35 to.
No, that is to the viewers to decide the benefits and the outlet fee into County Ditch 35. The outlet fee takes into consideration what has been spent in County Ditch 35 over a period of years. And I would imagine that the outlet fee into County Ditch 35 would be pretty minimal since they're already beneficiaries of the system. But I would expect that the benefits in County Ditch 35 that they will pay will be increased over what they would be in County Ditch 50 because of their location rate to the public drainage system in comparison to where they are in the landscape of County Ditch 50.
Yeah, their benefits should go up.
Their benefits will go up. And the benefits will be either partially or wholly removed out of County Ditch 50.
Because they'll be within, it should be almost 90%.
Correct. They're only a 40-acre parcel away from the open ditch or the county tile.
And then it will dump into that other private tile before it goes into 35.
Correct. But, they're looking at bringing an 8-inch outlet into their private 18-inch tile. The private 18-inch tile will then outlet into the end of the County Ditch 35. I'm sure that I'll read through the information provided by the engineer, but they're talking about less than half a cubic foot per second of additional flow and raising the mean elevation of the ditch by less than 1/4 of an inch. So that's not a lot of additional flow.
And it will be looked at after it's done, correct?
We'll have some oversight to make sure that the drainage system is representative of the design that was given to us. There's been, with those 2 ditch systems in that neighborhood, there's been some contention in the last 2 years, and just to make sure that everyone is by the rules, I guess.
Right. I feel this is going by the rules. So. All right.
Any other questions on this one? We do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries for the petition. Next would be to appoint the viewers.
I move it.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Krause. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next would be to set the public hearing date.
make that motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrandt, second by Commissioner Malter. Any discussion on the date? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to the public hearing date.
Thank you.
Right? Same.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Next is consent agenda with approval of the bills and transfer between funds. Transfer between funds, is that, do we need to attach numbers to those so they don't look the same? Maybe. Extension of zoning permit for Leonard Markart, Ashley Rader of Ruby Ranch, a site plan amendment. Payment schedule for the first half 2024 taxes, residential tax abatements, first half appropriations for 2024, and a reclassification request. So we'll amend the transfer of funds so there's a number attached.
We'll include it in the minutes if that's appropriate too, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrandt, second by Commissioner Malter. Question?
One question, and SWCD is not on first half appropriations.
Correct, yeah, so there is a budget placeholder for them, but the conversation leading up to this was wait until the end of the year and have follow-up conversations with SWCD to know what the actual budgetary impact was for 2024. So they're in the budget, but do not have the first half appropriation.
And that's been conveyed to the board, you know, that that's the way it's being handled.
My understanding, yes.
Okay.
I don't know if we get unanimous consent with that or not.
All right. That's my only question.
Other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action items. Contract 812409, Wilton Township, TLS. I'm sorry, I did mess that up. We're going to move the H of proclamation declaring July 16th drug court day. I tried to.
Only my note version, it's always No, I recorded a lot of this, so I appreciate it. I just figured, of course, by the time we got to the agenda, of course, it'd be the time I had to record. Wanted to introduce this. So something very exciting is that in 2 weeks from today is our 10-year anniversary for Still Waseca Drug Court. We have a special event planned on July 16th. It is from noon to 1:30 in the courtroom. I remember I mentioned that to you guys during my presentation a couple weeks ago. Also from 3:30 to 5:30, there'll be a volleyball event and potluck at Clear Lake Park for anyone who's wanting to come join in on that. You are welcome to. It is, we are at 108 graduates, so pretty exciting news. We are proud of our accomplishments and believe that this should be something that should be championed by the county and recognized. So that's why we were asking, and this is on behalf of Ms. Grams and myself. We were hoping that the county board would approve this and proclaim July 16th national, well, we have National Drug Court Day other places, but Waseca County Drug Court Day. So just a note, one thing too is in the resolution it talked about, the savings that are had. I would also just point out too that treatment courts save an average of $6,000 for every individual they serve, and I would even tell you that it's even more than that, because to house someone in prison for 1 year in Minnesota is about $76,000 a year. So many of these people are facing prison sentences if they don't complete probation and drug court successfully. So I would say savings is a lot more than was even in the proclamation. Any questions of me? All right, well, hopefully you'll post for 2 weeks from today to go at least to the court from noon to 1:30, so all of you can attend if it works in your schedules. Thank you.
Do you have a vote on it? motion for declaring the license for dog court day?
I would make that motion.
Is there a second? There is. Motion by Commissioner Mulder, second by Commissioner Krause. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Contract 812409, Wilton Township PLSS remonumentation. Mr. Green.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I was here in April and the board adopted a resolution authorizing staff to submit a grant application for the public land survey system, specifically targeting Wilton Township in this grant application. We were awarded up to $300,000 to remonument and recertify the 133 section corners in that township. And then we also, in conformance with state law and the terms of the grant, competitively bid the land surveying and service work to be performed to do that remonumentation work. Oh, geez, I should try to hand it out. So we, sorry about that. We received bids while I was out of the office here last week. We did receive 3 bids. Jones Howard Smith is the apparent low bidder with a bid amount of $182,875, significantly underneath what we were estimating for their portion of the work to cost. And all of their work would be reimbursable by that $300,000 grant, as well as the in-kind work that the county would do. We applied for the grant, stating that, our forces would do the excavation work. So operator and backhoe and that sort of thing. And that time and materials also and equipment is also reimbursable. And then when the certificates of survey and all of it are completed and filed, Travis Swanberg's time is also reimbursable to make that available to the public, which was all the intent of the grant proposal. So it's really here today to request award of contract 812409 to Jones Howard Smith for the $182,875.
I would move to approve. I got a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Milbrandt. Do we have discussion? Go ahead. No, you go first.
Sure.
Yeah.
Might have the same question.
It might have the same question.
So it came in quite a bit
Under what we were kind of told to estimate for, $1,800 to $2,000 a corner.
and that might be because they've done they have done work in the township previously, I would imagine. But I can understand the benefit that constituents are going to have with this when they want surveys done, and also helping the county out as far as the highway department, because you know where all those pins are. Correct. When you go out to do more work. So I'd like to see more of it done throughout the county in the years to come. So
If we end up, with our labor and our staff time, if we got 50,000 left over, do we have a certain amount of time to spend that? Do we have a couple of years or?
Good question. So this work that was awarded in this grant needs to be completed by March 2026. And while some work will happen this fall, mostly research, I think next year is the bulk of the excavation and survey work, and then get the paperwork all completed in winter of 25 and early 26, and everything's filed, recorded, and certified by the completion date. So I think this work is really a 2-year project just to get this township done. If there's any extra money left over, I guess we would have to approach the state about creeping beyond the limits of Wilton Township, but I don't really think that's too likely. I think they'll probably just hold on to that money and hopefully have another grant round next year. And we can continue to apply for more townships.
That money will, is this granted to us, or do we have to bill them?
It's reimbursable, so we have to bill, yep, we have to show what we've paid and expended and then get reimbursed for it.
Go ahead.
I share Commissioner Krause's excitement about getting started on this project. It absolutely will serve our residents in that they'll know where things are, really are, not just guessing from a fence line. I'm also very thankful to hear that we've got some skin in the game, but we'll also get reimbursed for that skin by the grant, both on the actual work side of it, but also on the technical side of it with GIS. Because the whole point of this is to take this work and turn it into usable, accessible data on our website so that our residents can look and see, and they can be reassured that the line that they're seeing on the map on the website is not 20 or 30 feet from where it is represented on the website, because right now, that's what it is. And we all know, we've told residents, if you need a survey, because the representation on our website is not that accurate. Partly because we haven't done all these corners. And so this is a great start to help our residents and to help us do better work.
Jim, this is, their work is finding those pins at 182,875.
Correct. All the research and what goes into it. And
Right, but that's because like their bill, so we're the pass-through, we're going to bill. Do you have an estimate what you guys would have in it? I mean, this is kind of an unknown at this point.
we applied for the maximum amount because we were
Right.
there with
Right.
kind of what we were ballparking for the couple grand.
Yeah.
When we were putting the grant application together, I was talking, Jones and Smith just happened to be my source of information to help us get this grant application out there and submit it. And, we were ballparking 1,800 to $2,000 a corner plus some our time to excavate. So it wasn't real hard to get to $300,000 with our time on that number. When it came time to actually competitively bidding it, they sharpened the pencil a bit, got down below the $1,800 mark, which is why it's actually much lower than that estimate was. Which is great news. Time will tell and see how things go. I would like to say we'll be under 300,000 when we're done, but I also kind of think of it as a construction project, and there's always something that happens. There's an expense that we might come forward.
And that would have been my question, I know you're gonna have time in there, but I really don't wanna leave 50 or 60,000 on the table either. If there's something else that makes sense that ties to this,
Yeah.
whether it be through, GIS Beacon or whatever is. Right.
Kind of bound by what we applied for,
Right.
I think, but, and hopefully, too any money we don't expend, we'll just look offers for another grant application next April.
We had a motion in a second. There's no other discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. No. Smith, literacy grant for early readers project.
It's actually really good. Yeah. I brought show and tell, so if you wanted to touch and feel, you can pass them along, however you want to do. We love this grant program for Smith, and I know they mentioned it today when they were presenting. These are really nice books from Capstone and ABDO Publishing, that they work with Smith to award grants in the 20 county region. We've been really fortunate to be recipients over the course of many years, and the families we serve are really grateful for these terrific books. We primarily provide books during family home visits, and we introduce reading to baby and new girl. So teaching moms to read to their bellies, and helping them increase that interaction as they grow in subsequent visits. We also have these books available to distribute to any other caregivers, so our senior services team does take them out on occasion with them to houses they know children are frequenting regularly. So that the kids in our community know books are for everyone. We spend roughly about $200 going to get the book, delivery, going through the process of picking out books, and then a little bit of money in the annual recording for staff. So it is an in kind of, I don't know, $200, $215, I think estimated. But the benefits are extremely helpful. Any questions about this particular grant? We did pick up the books for this year because the timing was funky, but we have not done distribution. So if for some reason you don't want this program, we can return
Right.
I was looking for the ones, that have the noise buttons in them.
Oh, no.
The pop-ups, maybe.
Yeah, the pop-ups and stuff like that.
I don't think we picked any of those if they were available.
All right,
I'll make a motion.
we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Milgrath, second by Commissioner Walter, any discussion? All those in,
Just briefly, as a retired educator and as a mom and a grandma, literacy is the #1 determinant for success in school for children. Far and away, every book that a kid gets read to, even when they're too little to understand what it is just essential in helping them want stories and want words. And we know that kids who get read to have much larger vocabularies, and just everything about their development increases with every book they get read. I am so thankful for this program, so thankful that we're taking advantage of it. Thank you to the staff who are making sure that people who otherwise find it harder to get to books, get them and get some great books. These are really awesome. Like, oh, I need some of these for my bookshelf. They're just amazing. Thank you.
any other comments, questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Public hearing to consider amendment to the 6.21 Village Mixed Use District Standards of the Waseca County Unified Development Code. Good morning, Mike. Good, yourself? Good.
So the first item I have for today would be a public hearing to include landscape material retail business in the UDC under conditional uses for the village mixed use. We are doing this code amendment to just increase some economic activity in our village mixed use area. So this will be specifically will be in each of the village mixed uses like pharmacy, Manon. But then the main business will be, the first business we're getting for this code amendment to be in Manon. So we did not have anything for the proposal in our UDC, so we have to go through a code amendment to be able to do that. So we went through that code amendment process at the planning commission level, I think in April, and then we went through the CEP process last month, but then I just wanted to put everything together and do the approvals the same meeting, so that's kind of like why we haven't gone through the amendment yet. So we will have to do a public hearing to adopt the proposed changes in the UDC, and then we'll have to also consider approving ordinance 157, which is attached to the memo.
So is this, are we setting a date for this or are we doing it today?
Yeah,
You know,
we've already set
did.
the public hearing date,
Yes.
right? Yes, today. Okay.
We'll just come back to the ordinance with this, so you can see that.
Yeah. All right, so at this time, we'll open a public hearing for these changes. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment for the proposed code changes? Hearing that, I would take a motion to close. Is there a second?
There it is.
Motion by Commissioner Milbreast, second by Commissioner Drowsy. We will move out of the public hearing. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I would move to approve ordinance 157.
And second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Christopherson, a second by Commissioner Mulder. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, so the second item on the agenda will be for the conditional use permit to create a landscape material retail business in the village of Madawan. The parcel IDs are two parcel IDs, in the county. These two parcels are non-conforming parcels because they are less than 1 acre minimum in the village mixed use, or I think 0.06 acres. So what we do is to combine these two parcels for development and planning purposes, but then they still would have these two PIDs. So the business would be under two PIDs. That's because in planning and zoning law, they are seen as one parcel because they are less than the minimum requirements for parcel size in that area. The applicant is Tyler Goldman, and then he is requesting for that landscape material retail business. This is in response to the code amendment we just approved a couple minutes ago. That he did provide a site plan for the parcel. This is just a rough schedule of what he provided. There used to be two structures on the parcel, like a trailer home and then a garage or a shed that he's removed, and he's done a lot of improvements to clean up the parcel just to make way for his business. He is proposing to have screening on all sides of the parcel, just because at some point in time, some people might complain about how the parcel is being operated. But then this is not a requirement by the county, it's just something he provided. So we don't have any screening requirements in the conditions that were recommended for by the design commission. In response, based on his rough sketch, I put together like a cleaner version of the site plan. So you basically would see he's using an existing garage that is off of the county road for his showroom and inventory space. And then there's another shed that's gonna remodel to be used for his office. And then the other part of the parcel, which is like way south of the parcel, would be the areas that he's earmarking for material storage and parking. So he's gonna put his materials in I think he's gonna arrange concrete blocks or something and put the materials in there. That way, if there are any complaints about any nuisance in that area, that's been catered for. He's not gonna just put the materials just in open, just because we've had a couple of nuisance issues in that area. So this would actually help improve the appearance of that area a little bit. And based on what he provided in discussions with him, we identified two issues with the request, which was screening. The screening was basically based on the fact that we've had some issues with nuisance in that area. So staff identified that, which he is proposing to have some vegetation around, but this is not a requirement or a condition in the CUP. And then an issue about the outdoor storage. Again, we've had issues about nuisance in that area. So with him storing his materials in the open but then in concrete blocks he's gonna, I think, match it up a little bit, so you wouldn't really see the materials. You would see the materials on the highway, but it would just be in the open as, usually what you would see in that area. And we, as our standard practice, we provided the staff report to agencies for comments. We did not really have any comments in the negative regarding this request. So, at the hearing on, I think it was June 7th, the planning commission proposed to include, recommend 8 conditions based on this request. Then most of the comments were pretty standard for our conditional uses, and then some were pertaining to his use. I did include the recommended conditions in the memo, and then the criteria also in the memo as well. So at this point, we can just go into discussion if you have any questions, and then we can make a decision on whether to approve the CUP, deny the CUP, or table the CUP.
Was there any public comment at the planning commission?
No.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mona? All right, we need to approve the conditional use permit with the planning commission's recommended conditions. Do we have to approve the criteria first?
You
Or
can-
do is it
You
just-
do the criteria and then go to CUP.
I'll move approval of the criteria and the findings or facts.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Mulder. Any other discussion on the criteria? All those in favor, aye? Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we can move to,
I move the CUP.
all right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Mulder, second by Commissioner Milbrat. Any discussion?
I just would make the comment that I commend Tyler for the work he's done there in cleaning up those parcels, and I wish him luck in his new venture.
Any other comments? All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries for the CUP. Thank you. All right, next is the conditional use permit for an essential service in section 20 of Woodville Township.
So, this is a conditional use permit for a gas substation in Waseca County. We classify that as an essential service in the county, which is, you require a conditional use permit for that. They do have existing gas substation in that area, but then they are proposing to make an expansion within their leased area, so that's kind of like why we have to go through this process. And we could not find any original conditional use permit for the existing substation, so this is more like going, doing a background check and doing basically paperwork. Everything is gonna be in that leased area that they have with the landowners, which would be William and then Indian Haggard. And this is in section 20 of Woodville Township. As I mentioned, there are no existing variances or TVs that we could find on that parcel. So this is basically a site location map showing where the proposal is, it's existing currently and where the proposed expansion is going. And so if looking at the map here, you can see like the blue green outline is their proposed footprints for the expansion. And then just to the northeast corner of that is the existing gas substation. And then they are doing everything within their lease area, and they do have a lease agreement with the property owners. I think that was signed in 2006. So this has been ongoing for some time. And I did provide you with an enlarged version of the footprint. They are proposing to remove some existing fence of gravel to the northern part of the substation. But then again, everything they're doing will be in the footprint, so it's more like an expansion project and not like a new gas substation project. And this is also a site plan showing what they're going to do in that area. The planning commission. The only comment I have to provide is that we checked with setbacks and then we did all of our required setbacks, so we don't have any issues with that. We did not get any comments from Linda until after the hearing. but then they already knew about the project and they knew it wasn't gonna impact the highway in any way. So we did not have any comments, just that basic comment that they did know about the project. And they don't have any objections against that project, but then the comments came after the hearing at the planning commission level. So then next slide. So we identified 3 issues with the request. During construction phase, there might be some noise in that area. And then that'll be just basically during the construction phase, but then afterwards, it will probably be just 2 occurrences within the year for maintenance of the gas substation. And then there might be an issue with traffic during construction phase as well, but then that'll be minimal after everything is done and during commencement. And then regarding lighting, we usually would require them to direct the lights downwards so that it doesn't impact the roadway or adjacent neighbors in any way. So those are the 3 issues with the request, issues that staff identified with the request. And as our standard practice, we provided the staff reports, a link to the staff report to the agency for comments. And again, we did not get any comments back. We only got an in-depth comment back after the hearing. And that wasn't, there were no objections to the project. And the planning commission on the meeting June said recommended 5 conditions to be placed on the CEP request. And I included the conditions and then the criteria in the memo that was attached to the agenda item. So I wouldn't want to for us to go through it. But if you have any more questions, I can try to respond to that. And so then we can just move to the decision. So we can do the criteria first and then the condition.
Someone want to make a motion for the criteria?
I would move to approve the criteria.
Is there a
Is
second?
that a second?
Motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Milbrath. Is there, I'm going to recuse myself from this for the vote. So, is there any discussion on this? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. I will abstain. So we don't need a personal vote if it was unanimous on the floor, correct? Okay, thank you. Next would be the vote on the CUP with the recommended conditions. Is there a motion for that?
Make that motion.
I'd second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Milbrath, second by Commissioner Walter. Any discussion?
Just quickly, this is an essential service, and so I'm obviously we need to do our due diligence, but the fact is it's an essential service, and our people need essential services. So thank you to the planning and zoning staff who walked this process forward to make it happen.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. I'll abstain. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Next is public hearing to consider residential tax abatement for Jerry and Suzanne Lewis.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We've been through this process already today, but this is not an unfamiliar item to you. We've done a number of these over the last year or so, but I was just asked for the board's consideration as you've already reviewed and seen in the packet to open up a public hearing to see if there's any public comment on the allowance of this abatement per state statute, and then look for the board's consideration of approval as well as this joint residential tax abatement with the city of Waseca.
Thanks, Michael. We'll open the public hearing for this. I forgot to do time last time, 10:49. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Anyone for public comment? I would accept a motion to close the public hearing. Motion. Is there a second?
There is.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrath, second by Commissioner Krause. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. 10:49. We're on the public hearing.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and then I would look for approval of the actual tax abatement for Jerry and Suzanne Lewis.
Can I have a motion for the approval of the tax abatement? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Milbrecht. Any discussion?
Have we reviewed that? Is there a dollar maximum on that?
There's an imposed dollar maximum, though it can fluctuate in a given year, but the maximum itself is on the market value. So there's an imposed maximum of what the equatable tax could be based upon the market value. Granted, that is based on the tax rate. So yes, there is, but the imposition of a maximum that the board entertained when this was approved with the city was on market value, not a dollar amount.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Waseca County credit card purchasing policy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today I'm requesting to update the credit card policy. I don't believe there have been any revisions since 1988. Yes, 1988. And currently, everyone with a credit card has a $3,000 limit. I'm requesting to increase commissioners and department heads to $4,000 simply because me, for an instance, when I have several staff going to a conference and I have to make reservations, it gets touchy. And commissioners traveling on legislative visits gets touchy. There have been times that we've been like marginal if we're within $20, we can't get it accomplished. And so to increase those, I think would be a good thing. I'm not requesting to increase everyone simply because the state auditor wants us to maintain as much internal control as we can. And additionally, I'm requesting that the county administrator and the director of property and election services be able to increase temporarily for instances. We had one place where if we could have temporarily increased $20, we could have saved a $30 fee for an overage. And that just only makes sense to me. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Questions? So you want that to, you want the credit limit raised to 4, but you want to be able to temporarily raise yours and Michael.
No, I want Michael and I jointly to be able to temporarily increase, for instance, if you were in Washington DC and you called and said, I have an emergency and I can't fly back or what have you, that the two of us could then jointly make that decision. And then the finance coordinator is the person who actually makes the changes, so we have a three-way control of that.
Okay. All right. Everybody understands that? That's what you'll be voting on. All right, I'm looking for a motion for this increase. There a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mulder, second by Commissioner Milbrecht. Any discussion on this?
I've been down this road before when you're running short as a department head and you're scrounging everybody else's credit cards to make sure that you get enough to purchase everything. So being able to increase it, having that power, I think is welcome.
Good. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Next is the administration update. Michael.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Before I get too far into it, I wanted to take a minute to introduce Silas to those standing back there. He's our administration intern for a few weeks this summer. He's been helping out the assessor's office for a couple of weeks. He spent some time with emergency management. He'll be getting some election exposure, some finance exposure tomorrow. He had to endure about a 2-hour property tax conversation with me yesterday. He's there. And he'll be helping out public health with some tasks and several other places as well too. There's a few people vying for his time, which may not get fulfilled, but that's okay. So happy to be able to do that and work with some schools as we go forward and with students and in his instance, an organizational leadership program. So I wanted to take a minute to introduce him to you as well. So,
Should we got his name again?
Silas Tolosa.
Should we have some background?
What kind of background would you like?
Well.
Background check?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Silas.
Please.
All right, I'm going into my second year of college. Not necessarily sophomore because I might graduate in 3. I'm looking at the credits that I have to try to figure out if I can do that. But I've been living in Owatonna, been there for almost 9 years now. Graduated high school from Owatonna Christian, and then now I'm going to Faith Baptist in Ankeny, Iowa. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Do you feel like your head's still above water after getting all this information from Lincoln? You know?
Just barely.
A lot to
That's
absorb.
good. It's good.
Good. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
I agree. We've been exposed to a lot of different things already, and obviously there's a lot more in the pipeline for you to see. We hope that your experience here helps you see the depth and breadth of the things that local government does for its residents. And thanks for coming to take a look, and we hope that this work inspires you further on to serve. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, then, Mr. Chair, the one other thing I just want to put in front of you folks today is this document that's kind of hot off the press, if you will. We've been waiting for some direction from the Office of Cannabis Management directly. We had a good guidance document from the Association of Minnesota Counties in April, as you're aware of, but this one coming directly from the state gets us a little bit closer to what we can start to craft in terms of expectations and what we need to be aware of for implementation from a Unified Development Code standpoint, land use standpoint, permits, et cetera. But certainly gives some illusion, just pausing that table of contents for a minute, of some of the key questions that we're looking to find answers to, especially after some of the tweaks in this last legislative session that wrapped up just a month or so ago. And something of particular import that I was talking to the city of Waseca yesterday, as well as Waseca schools, just using them as this kind of some quick rebounding takeaways for how we interpret this. And as you're aware of, even in our last meeting that we had, we talked about the need of getting some of our municipalities together and see what their approach will be. But one of the unique takeaways here is as it pertains to the zoning restrictions between counties and cities, that was one of the ongoing questions of how is that relationship going to work? Can one supersede the other? And this seems pretty clear that cities may not adopt requirements which conflict with an ordinance adopted at the county level. So the county does have some preeminence in determining exactly what those zoning restrictions will look like as a county area, and the city cannot deviate or implement their own, adopt their own requirements that conflict with an ordinance that the county adopts. So how that is continued to be applied at the local level, of course, we will continue to see. This is version 1. They're very clear in this that this is not state regulations. This is interpretation right now of Chapter 342. The state regs will be coming out after this and will undoubtedly, very likely modify this document to an extent, though it is much, much more than we've ever had to this point. So we sent this out to public health and Lana yesterday, and we're going to get together in the near future and start diving into what does it mean, Commissioner?
At our district meeting, AMC, we heard very clearly that townships might also have a voice in this. And so when are we going to get our townships involved in this conversation?
As soon as we can.
Okay.
We'll send those requests out in the very near future.
Because we do the planning and zoning for the townships.
Yeah.
And so I can't see many of them deciding to take on this, but just to help them understand what their role is or isn't and find out what they're thinking would be.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to get their voice into conversation, as you already articulated there. By default, right now, they will comply with whatever the county implements for restrictions or allowances. It's important to point out too, there is no restriction that is required in terms of an allowable number of licenses or registrants. There's processes in this document for, okay, maybe the county implements the ordinance for 5 licenses and you get 10 applicants. Well, what do you do with that? How does that look? Is there a lottery process in place? What's the means of selecting those? Working through something like a meso business and/or a micro business, or meso business specifically that may have one license, for example, but multiple retail locations. Is that one license? Is that multiple? And in their interpretation, the state's interpretation, that's one license. So you could have one licensed individual that has 5 different retail locations. So thinking about that in terms of, is it a maximum amount of retail spaces that is being sought, a maximum amount of licensed providers or producers, I should say, that's being sought. So a lot of those things that just need to be thought through intimately as it applies. I'm not going to go through all of this. There's this license pre-approval process that you've maybe heard of that opens the end of this month for a 2-week period. So July 24th through August 12th. We don't really know what that's going to look like yet. I mean, this starts to allude to it, but this is something that's managed by the state as well as their portal. So they have to have this SEA, this social equity applicant status in order to even go through this. And again, that's the state's process, that's not ours. So it's very much a wait and see what that looks like. But a lot of information in here in terms of the overall licensing process, what that should in theory look like at the local level. I talked about this a little bit, the retail restrictions, how you interpret Minnesota Statute 342.13. We know that we have to allow at least 1 retail location per 12,500 residents. Again, you don't have to put a cap on it, but you can't say no if you have somebody that has applied and is eligible. You don't have to go seek an application, or an applicant, I should say. If nobody asks, then you don't have to forcibly create one or create a municipal model from the county's perspective just to say we have one. That's not what the law is stating here, but there has to be at least that minimum of 1 allowed if there is a eligible licensed individual or entity that qualifies on all levels, both at the state and local level. There's a lot in here about what those qualifications can look like at the local level, how they may change, how they may be stripped or taken away based upon certain things. There's a lot in here about the local government's requirement to inspect. For example, it states that at least once per year that retail space must be inspected for compliance. We don't know all of what that means yet, but we know that there is some age verification pieces, obviously some licensure verification pieces, zoning verification pieces, but it's still limited on exactly what compliance, that word compliance means and how it's defined, which is a little scary. Tax component, you know that there was modification to some of those. There was a lot of lobbying from the AMC standpoint, which is good. This was a good thing. In terms of 20% at least of those taxes being directed to local government. So as we understand this is going to state general funds cumulatively. How it will be apportioned, I don't know that we know yet. For example, is it only, how it's been explained is that this is a cumulative pool at the state that they're looking at capturing all cannabis sales and then apportioning them out. Or will it be looking at strictly cannabis sales within that government entity, that jurisdiction, and then doing that split for just, in our instances, revenues raised in Waseca County? Or is it revenues raised statewide and then apportioned out on a per population basis? based upon that formula. We don't have an exact answer to cannabis gross receipts yet and tax proceeds from them, so that's something to keep an eye on, certainly, as there's likely to be a big difference in that number based upon how that's implemented and interpreted. Talked about that a little bit already as a business and operating multiple locations with one license. There's a lot of examples in here that will mostly be plug and play in our own UDC, I think, which would be helpful, but given our timing and the conversations the board has had up to this point, this is a good time to facilitate this conversation and look to implement. We talked to the schools a little bit about buffer guidelines and setbacks. As you see, there's specific call out for schools in here, where a cannabis retailer or location cannot be located in proximity to a school. And or, let's say other things, I think parks, right? Parks, playgrounds, anyone, and anything that can regularly be used by minors, which is gonna get a little subjective, I'm sure, but that's okay. But zoning guidelines, again, as I said, I'll scroll down a little bit here, but there's some charts and things in here that break it down by the actual activity, the licensed activity, the business entity itself, description, and then basically how do you go through making that determination from a zoning and land use standpoint based upon what the actual endorsed or licensed activity is. So there's a lot of good information in here. Talking about the local approval process as well, we were talking about that even in terms of getting a joint meeting together with our other jurisdictions, not wanting to step on toes necessarily, but also knowing pretty clearly from this document that the county has to take the lead on what that overarching ordinance looks like. Knowing that there's a little bit of a timeline imposed as well in implementing a new ordinance. We have existing ordinance that addresses like alcohol, tobacco use in our existing parks. It could be a modification of such, or I'm guessing we're going to want to have a completely separate created ordinance just to deal with this, because this is a lot more than even that existing ordinance would entertain. And it has to give some direction for how it applies to the Unified Development Code as well. So stuff in here is, and again, I'll share this with you as well for your own approval and not rapid speed like this, but retail registration process, how this happens at the local level, limitations on some of those fees, determination right here that I was mentioning that earlier. What if you, by ordinance, say you can only have 5 and you have 10 apply? What does that look like, and how does the local government unit approach that? I mentioned this a little bit too, how they register, when they can be suspended, complaint processes. That's all spelled out in Chapter 342 as well. This is kind of the biggest unknown still, the inspection and compliance. What does that mean? It says at least once per calendar year. What does that mean in terms of the scope of what compliance is? So that will be fleshed out more with the state regs as they continue to be unfurled in the upcoming months. Anything on this right now? I know that was a lot quickly, but I wanted to at least touch on some of it.
Do we, as a board, should we send out to our townships and let them know that we should probably get together at it?
Yeah, so it's always kind of a, I don't know, 70-ish% success rate in reaching out to townships. For us, there's some that, well, there's 2 that are pretty proactive with email. After that, it gets a little murky. So I'd like using you folks as conduits for those conversations. So part of what I was going to ask, and this was already mentioned by Commissioner Malter as well, is can we find a date out there and see who we can get in the same room at the same time and walk through some of this and get, as best we can, get to a collective community-wide understanding of how this is going to be approached. They didn't want to do that until we as the county were able to talk about what our needs are in this, what are the desires of the commissioners, and even approaching land and zoning uses. Is there a number that you want to key on? Are we looking for minimal compliance? We'll have one and that's it. What does that look like? And then again, thinking of in terms of mezzo business license does not equate to retail spaces. So making that connection. And then as you see up here, there are still a couple of LGUs looking at a muni model for these to, in a way, as we've heard a couple of people explain it, well, if we have to do it, we might as well maximize the revenue coming back to the county. There's that too. That could happen at the city or county level, in theory township level, but much less likely at the township level. And a municipal license does not count towards the total, so that's something to keep in mind as well too. That is something that changed in this last 2024 session when they were, I think, hearing kind of that backdoor approach or loophole. They closed that loophole to say, well, yeah, county, you can have one, but it doesn't count towards your license total.
I would think that, as you said, that because we do zoning for the townships, that while we absolutely want to make sure that they're in the door and in on these conversations and early, it seems that the first meeting we should be having is with all of our cities, because they have more ability to sway this, and they might have more insight as to whether there is local interest from folks in the city. I know a few years ago, there was a lot of talking to Janesville about this very topic. And so I think probably that would help us gauge. We know that this is going to have a lot of cost to it, both monetary and social, and we don't have a choice about that. But we also know that there is possible revenue in this, and there is possible economic development, and we need to weigh those two things. And I think we need to have some input from our cities as to what they're hearing about interest. Because if there's no interest in any of our cities or little, that might drive those conversations a little bit more.
Yeah.
That would be information I would be interested in.
Definitely. I think we're going to see a lot more interest in this than we would have expected a year or so ago, because there are 13 different licensure types. And think of farmers market, think of all of those individual instances where somebody says, well, I can grow some of these plants and bring them to the farmers market, and it's not very difficult for you to acquire a license at that point. There's 13 different licensure types. So it isn't just the large producers. We obviously have one in the city of Waseca that is very well oriented to get into this space in immediacy as soon as the licensure process is available. But with how well it's broken out in the licensure process, I would expect this to be fairly in high demand. So it's not just figuring out total license numbers as a total license numbers per each of these allowable licenses. Like you as the individual grower that wants to bring something to the farmer's market versus creating a retail space. Let's just go back to the license types here. So the top ones are really talking about the first 6 or 7, the larger facilities, but there are other things, especially in the low potency stuff here, that, well, I won't say sell out of your garage, that's not a good example probably, but kind of that scale, the lower retail model, if you will. And obviously we're already dealing with some of this with THC edibles and the really lack of regulation that exists there already. There's no testing process. The county's not involved in that in any way right now. So we aren't issuing licenses for that. We aren't involved in the compliance checks for, is this really 5 milligrams? Is this really 10 milligrams? Or whatever.
And according to this new statute, we never will be. So that's not the issue for
If
us.
we can agree that we're gonna talk to the other cities in the county before we talk to the townships. And then after that, into the township level, it'd be nice that they have all this information in front of the powers that be. And go through and go through it so that they have some key questions for Michael, if you will. Because I don't want it to start out at ground zero every single time when it's Groundhog Day, every time you have the conversation. Because you're gonna have 2 or 3 of those meetings, and it's always gonna start out the same way. Now, who can do this? Now, what's going on? Where,
So probably the very first step is to direct staff to communicate with the cities and the townships to share this information and a letter that either comes from the administrator or from the administrator and the board saying this is a fairly significant, important thing with a deadline that they have a voice in and we need to figure out. I agree, it would feel like whack-a-mole.
yes.
And if that letter, first we gotta get a couple dates, and if we can get that letter out, that might motivate more folks who might otherwise want to ignore this to say, oh, I guess we better pay attention, we have some liability here, or some interest here.
And this is the first draft of what they, we don't even know. I mean, we could put this out to 4/20 next year before we have any meeting. And we're still gonna be in the same shape we are.
What's the day of the week? Yeah, absolutely. There was definitely the implication that this will change.
Right.
4/20/2025 is a Sunday, so we can.
Yeah, probably don't do that.
We will certainly connect Mame and myself and Sarah and talk through. So in that kickoff meeting, it would be helpful to at least come with, here's where the county's headed. Here's at least a high level, it's not what we've committed to, we passed nothing, right? This is at least where we're going. This is what
We're starting out.
Yeah, and before we can do that, we have to have a little bit of insight from yourselves as well. What limited we know in fruition what this will become and what promises we have that it will all change. Not all, but a lot of it will change. How can we best determine right now or a month from now, here's a good starting point? Because ultimately it's an ordinance. And an ordinance can be changed. It's not as though it can't, it's just you're about a month at a time trying to do that, to set a public hearing and then modify it.
And I believe that, we have to move forward with this because like Michael said, we do have someone that is fairly well established and they're going to be the ones questioning, where are you at with this? Why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
So do we need to schedule a work session? Just so that we can come prepared, all having read this and highlighted it, and having a little bit, because there's a ton of, just the vocabulary in here.
Yeah.
It's 46 pages, it's not that long. Let's schedule a work session. Our homework is to have vetted this ahead of time so that we can have some kind of informed conversation.
The end of this document, fortunately, they provide a template for what an ordinance should look like. And it's pretty good. It's actually probably more comprehensive than any of, well, it definitely is more comprehensive than any other ordinance because they really go through like section by section of chapter 342 and address all of them. So it's a starting point. So when you read this, yeah, a draft of this document in that first meeting is what would really be helpful to set the tone of that conversation. That's the real world application of here's the process, implicitory process that we're asking you to stay in the lane of, knowing that our cities cannot deviate or regulate in a way that is contradictory with what the county's ordinance is. You want to find a date? You want to talk about a date? We can go through even this ordinance, maybe that first meeting in August, I think it's the 6th. We'll give you some time to read through it yourselves and have some other conversations with people, and draw some conclusions in your own minds. And in the interim, staff will start talking to city staff and start talking with each other and look at it through the lens of zoning and figure out what makes sense, what doesn't.
August 6th?
Is that August 6th then?
And do you want to throw out a couple of potential days to start putting out to cities? At least from the city of Waseca standpoint, they like to stick to their predetermined schedule. It would likely have to be an after hours meeting, an evening meeting.
So we just follow through on the 6th, do they have anything on the 6th? What day is the 6th?
Evening.
Tuesday.
Our first meeting was Tuesday.
So we're foregoing the budget work session and putting this in its work?
No, I don't think this will take a full hour and a half. Well, hopefully it doesn't. I mean, you'll have this ahead of time too. And 95+% of what you see on the screen right now is still going to be there. So you'll see most of it plenty well ahead of time. But really the determinations to finalize in this is how does it apply to UDC and what's the magic number, if any, of allowable licenses or registrants. It's really just getting down to that question. Is the licenses, the registrants, the total number, does it apply to retail spaces or total licenses? Does it apply, those are really the key questions.
You can't follow through on August 6th because that would be their regular meeting night, the city.
True. Could you do a work session ahead of them?
Here again, I don't know how many are working or.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So we could leave it on a Tuesday, the 13th perhaps, and just start advertising that date with all of the various councils and mayoral folks.
Rather than now, so you do it.
That's the next week, the 13th evening, Tuesday evening, leaving it on a Tuesday.
And then after that, you would,
August 13th is election day, if that matters for any of you.
There's always something.
what is that?
Primary.
Yeah.
You have some primaries.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, it could be any day of the week, we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, and
If
then
it's a month in
after
advance,
that
it's either gonna
city
work or it
meeting,
won't.
you'll look to schedule a township. Right. Probably like a week later or something.
That makes sense. Yeah. Could be Monday the 5th, could be Monday the 12th. You know, any night of the week, I don't know that it really matters other than let's pick one and start telling them and letting them plan.
Monday the 12th.
Would this be all the cities or just Waseca?
All of them.
Okay.
I'll just probably tell them in this room. Go to school if they did some more space.
Syracuse, would the 12th work for everybody here?
12th of August.
6:30, August 12th, 6:30, large meeting room.
Skip.
All right, we'll throw it out there and see what kind of response we get. Yes. Thanks. You have an HR handout, not a ton to cover. Unfortunately, we did have one resignation in the county attorney's office, in addition to Amanda, this one was somewhat anticipated as well, but not that we would like to do it. Amanda didn't have much of a choice in that instance. But looking at that, Melissa and Rachel are getting together to talk about that approach going forward. We do have a couple of interviews scheduled to replace Amanda currently, and we'll see how those go. Potentially there's problems all resolved itself, but depending upon how those interviews go, and if they're both good candidates, but we'll wait and see on that. A couple more budget meetings for me to finish up tomorrow, and then after, by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll have at least full framework in place to start massaging units. So that's all for me.
Sheriff, have anything to add?
I have nothing to add today. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, who would like to begin with commissioner reports? All the way back to 18? June 18.
I can start. Mine will be short and sweet.
Rain. Water and rain.
Check
Is that what it says?
Check rain gauge. Check rain gauge. Syntax. The 18th was, we had a work session in the morning. And equalization, appeal and equalization, 6:30 that evening. Friday the 21st was our EDA meeting in the morning, which is starting to get a little bit more interesting as that whole plan comes together. Monday the 24th was the SCHRC in Owatonna. Commissioner Christopherson and I were there and went early for possibly, I'm looking into possibly more space because their space needs are getting short, or their meeting areas, and there are a lot of, not a lot, but some overlap with being able to meet in private places with, or under the rules.
Some confidentiality.
Yeah, with clientele. So, we had made some hard decisions, and we decided not to go that way as far as going with Justin's. That's getting more space. So we're going to go with Plan B, but the most, I think, the thing that frustrates me the most, and I believe Mitch brought it up in the nursing area. Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was restrictions, or there was more work being added to the registered nurses that they have as far as things that would need to be done in the future. And those tasks are being asked by the state to do this work. Well, I said, well, do we get reimbursed for this? And now you know where I'm going. So it's, yeah, we'll get it reimbursed after you start doing the work. And then we'll see how it goes, and then you can do a report on what you're doing, how much work it was. And then in maybe in the next year or two, then you can start submitting bills for that, and then we start paying you for the work that you did. But you're doing like a year or two free work, where does that money come from? And it's just backwards. So, yeah, and I don't know, it's really tough to make, you're not really making any money, but we don't want to be losing money over there either. So, But, so there was a real good discussion that evening on HRC. And then, I think, yeah, that pretty much brings it right to today, in between the raindrops.
Thanks, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah.
Commissioner Milburn.
Go back to June 18th, we had work session, we had the board meeting, equalization. The 22nd, coffee with the commissioner, Saturday. 24th, we had a special board meeting and we met with
Can
legislators.
you elaborate on coffee with the commissioner? Because I didn't, have you guys been invited to that one?
I have.
Want to break open
7
meeting?
o'clock, Peppermint, backyard.
Is it good coffee?
It is really good coffee.
7 in the morning?
Is there donuts?
No, there's, you order your own food.
Okay.
Amber does a good job. And you have to be a part of the conversation if you're there. Make sure that you can handle, wear your big boots.
Okay. All right. The high ones?
The high ones.
Okay.
The high ones.
All right.
Jay, Jay wears waders most days. The 24th, we had a special board meeting and we met with legislators. On Wednesday, the 26th, I took part of AMC's tax forfeiture property webinar. I fielded several calls on different questions within the county. Some of them have been shared already. The 29th, again, got with the commissioner, and then I attended the Willingham event at Clear Lake Park with Carice and Malik. That was quite interesting. They were the players from MSU that won the national championship. That was good to see them guys there. And that brings us up to date. Today, one note, I was asked by AMC to serve on a 2024 Safe and Secure Courthouse Grant Advisory Panel, which is run by Chief Judge Hudson from the statewide.
And you can do that? It doesn't conflict with the name?
I don't, at this point, it doesn't, no.
Is that a remote?
I think it is. At the first one's gonna be remote, and then they have a panel where they'll be done.
Nice. Thank you. Commissioner Mulder.
We were together on the 18th for a work session, a board meeting. And Commissioner Christopherson and I attended in Prairie that afternoon. Then we came back here for the Board of Appeal and Equalization. So that was a busy day. Thursday, June 30th, I sat in on the NACO Rural Action Caucus meeting. And chaired by Minnesota's Terrell Clark from Stearns County. And that would be her last meeting as chair, I think. Friday, June 21st, I was up in the cities at an AMC board meeting as the waters began to rise here in Waseca County and around us. On the 24th, I would have liked to be here for that legislative visit, but instead I was up visiting the Scott County Family Resource Center with Patty and Commissioner Rod Peterson and Commissioner Greg Krieger from Dodge and Steel, and that was a very interesting visit. And got a chance to ask some of the ins and outs of how their family resource centers operate, and they haven't been working, they haven't had these resource centers very long, but some of the numbers of the effects, as far as even just truancy, are pretty amazing. They typically deal with 60-some truancy cases in a year, and through half the year this year, they've only had 4. I mean, you think of cost savings there. There's some interesting things. Shifting from prevention to triage is a cool thing. Let's see. I too sat in on part of the AMC tax forfeiture webinar. Good, valuable resource. The webinar is, and there'll be more coming from them. That afternoon, the NACO Healthy County Advisory Board meeting, I was there. Then Friday, I stopped in the courthouse to wish Dory a happy retirement, bless her heart, after all her years with the county. Let's see, yesterday, Waseca County Housing Trust Fund met at the Community Services, and we continue to make a little progress there. Yes.
I didn't have that one on my radar.
Shoot. We are still vetting a couple different properties. Looking at some county properties, county-owned properties just south on 13, just south of the, of New 14. We did find out there's no city services there because they're outside the, there is a property within the city that we could probably get. But then, of course, we're paying for the property too. So anyway, there's some movement there and more things to come. I went from that to the NACO Health Steering Committee. We were going over resolutions for and planks for the platform for NACO, which I will be attending. I leave next Thursday, so I will not be at SWCD next week because I'm going to be in DC. After that, I had a virtual meeting. Mary Jo McGuire, NACO president, invited chairs and vice chairs from NACO committees to a virtual meeting, and so we had an update from her. And here we are today. And this afternoon, I've got a library budgeting meeting. So we'll start talking and just a reminder, the library does have its own taxing authority. So there is a commissioner from both LeSueur and Waseca County on that board specifically to help them think about the larger implications of levying and because small organizations like that don't necessarily think about overall levy for the counties and how this is one more thing, and so helps give them perspective. And so we'll start that conversation, and that'll be good. There's been more state funding for the libraries, so not expecting any real bad news from their preliminary thoughts there.
Did they have funding for the roof here in Waseca?
That would be a city of Waseca issue because the city owns the building and provides it. And so it is not up to the library board to pay for that.
And the school owns the land. School owns the land. City owns the building.
The library board, the library pays some rent to the city of Waseca for part of the building that is used for administration of the library system.
Okay.
It does not pay for the library proper. Every city that has a library in the two counties provides the building, and the building is their responsibility. They get a library and they get it supplied with the collection owned by the library.
So the city owns.
The city owns the building and is responsible for the cost of the building. But there has been rough leaks and it has been an ongoing issue, and the library administrator has certainly let the city know that there's issues with maintaining the collection if it gets rained on. That's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
See anything in there, Michael? It's kind of a gray area.
So you think the school district owns the land the building is on?
At one time,
They own the park. It looks like it's pointed at city at this point.
they just own the park.
The park area,
Yeah.
there's like 3.5 acres that the school district owns around the library.
So the library is on city property.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
No.
Yeah, that got talked about when with the Veterans Memorial.
Right.
Did it?
At the
Yeah.
school.
Okay, Commissioner Christopherson?
Yeah,
Thanks, Mr. Walter.
the 18th, of course, was Min Prairie and Board of Appeals. 21st was EDA meeting with Commissioner Krause, and then I was with Commissioner Hargett and met with Brad Finstead, Senator Jazinski, and Representative Petersburg. Talked about FEMA money, and our ask was more on the Richland and some fixed problems that we've had in the past. He was more looking for, but he was still helpful, and it was a good meeting to talk to him, but, they were looking at the dam and things that were happening right now, but he also was glad that he heard what we had to tell him about Richland, and we're being proactive to try to fix it. So anyway, 24th, HRC, yeah, very lengthy meeting with Commissioner Krause over there, and the board was unanimous in deciding we needed to look different avenues. And then today was labor ahead of the work session. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Christopherson. Regular board, Tuesday, the 18th, Board of Appeal and Equalization at 6:30 that evening. Friday, the 21st, I was into Denise Wright's office, Emergency Management, to sign the declaration of too much water in Waseca County. Okay, the people up, they're a lot worse off than we are, for sure. Monday, we met with representatives in Michael's office. I've had ongoing talks with Chris Howard, almost seems like every day. We went to a few areas where they had some excessive water that they wanted to know how to get rid of. That was like Tuesday, the 25th, Friday, the 28th. Brings us to today, and tonight I'll be going to City Hall with Chris again for some information to the city on ditch 15 and Gator Lake. That's all I have. Is there anything else to come before this board?
To adjourn.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries 11-4.